Hi everyone and welcome to another video, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my Cassiopeia guide. I've been spamming the hell out of Cassiopeia during the majority of the preseason, even though I have been a long-time Cassiopeia player. It was probably one of my best champions when I was a pro player. I played it for years and years and years. But because Cassio's identity has actually shifted quite a bit, I felt the need to kind of make a new Cassiopeia guide and go very deep. I've spoken to a bunch of differing Casio players, gotten different perspectives, and really tried to get out of my comfort zone and see all the differing ways you can play Cassiopeia. Now, one thing I do want to note here, guys, is that this is just one interpretation of Cassiopeia. There are many Cassiopeia one-tricks out there from the range of differing servers. I'm going to talk a lot about that within this guide, but I think it's important to keep in mind that Casio can be interpreted in many differing ways. So keep that in mind as you're going through this guide. Now, there's a lot we're going to break down today. This is kind of what we're going to be covering. There's going to be a lot of clips, a lot of VODs. So I don't think you're going to be able to tackle this in one sitting. Take your time, grab a coffee or three, and strap yourself in. And, you can dip, duck, and dive through different parts of it if you really want to. But I think watching it sequentially would make the most sense. So who is this guide for? This is going to be for beginners who are kind of looking for direction with Cassiopeia. If they don't really know where to start. This is going to be also for intermediate Casio players, people that have a decent amount of mastery and they want to take things to the next level. And then also experts who want to look for a different take or a different opinion on the champion, and maybe small little 1%ers that can level up their game. Okay, so a lot of stuff in here for everyone. Now, mix and match time. There are many different ways of playing Cassiopeia, as you see. I mean, we look at the guy from China, Sally. You look at some of that guy in Korea. I can't remember what his name was. There was the Punisher over in EU. I mean, there's many different Casio players, and they all play a very different style. Some super aggressive with Ignite, some super conservative with TP. But I've kind of got a bunch of different things here that I kind of want to get you guys thinking in a certain way. So we've got, on the left-hand side, two different, paces. We've got fast and aggressive, which is, marked by early all-ins, usually Ignite rather than TP, pushing for level 2 first. We've got the slow and conservative style, which is usually you getting shoved in, generally taking TP or barrier, playing off your key spikes. I would say that's a lot more in line with, say, Sally, this one over here with the Punisher. And then we have, differing interpretations of the actual champion's identity. We've got the interpretation of that, where Casio is that of a battle mage, or kind of think of it as her as like a AP Fiora, where you're building more defensive items, you're providing your own peel through your items, you're not really as reliant on front to back fights, more side laning kind of 1v9 style. And then we have the glass cannon pure damage style. This is where you would generally go less defensive items, maybe more Leandries, things like that, very little defensive itemization, conservative positioning. You play more like a control mage than that of like a battle mage. But again, both of these are viable, and sometimes you could make an argument to say one is more viable than the other in certain compositions. But across the board, you'll see with one tricks, they tend to kind of hone in on a specific identity and just go all in with it and just run with it. And I, for one, have been playing predominantly this fast and aggressive style matched with this battle mage style, and I've been having a lot of success with it, as we'll see later in this guide. Now, I want to talk about Cassiopeia's mindset. And this is going to be a little bit strange, but bear with me. This is going to be the mindset that will kind of carry you through your Cassiopeia journey. Now, for those of you who follow or are familiar with boxing, you'll kind of get this a little bit more than others, but hear me out. So, essentially, you must view yourself as the Mike Tyson of League of Legends. Now, you might say, what the hell? How does that make any sense? Well, Mike Tyson, relatively short range, but if he got in the person's range, his opponent's range, they were screwed because he has a lot of power. That is exactly the same as Cassiopeia. You're relatively short range, a very mid to short range champion, but if you can manage to get inside someone's range, you're going to be able to take them down. So every decision as Cassiopeia ties back to figuring out a way to close the gap without dying. Whether you're going to be camping a brush, whether you're going to be flashing forwards, whether you're going to be using Fog of War, using superior micro and tethering, using the Q movement speed. The list goes on. Everything ties back down to figuring out a way to get into the enemy's range. And this is the main reason why Casio by concept is a champion that rewards mechanical expression, clicking speed, and most of all, confidence. If you have low confidence with Casio, you know, just like Mike Tyson, you think he could do this with low confidence? No, not a hope in hell, no. Because Casio is not a champion that you can play with low confidence, and if you're not, you know, ready to kind of push your limits mechanically, you are going to struggle with this champion. So I urge you to keep in mind this mindset as you are going through this entire guide, because it will kind of be that North Star and reference point, which will kind of be the glue to tie together all the concepts that I'm going to be talking about today. All right. So what we're actually going to do, and I don't usually do this often, we're actually going to start with the setup and the runes. Usually I touch on this later, but because I'm tackling this guide more from a specific, I guess, style, I want to kick it off with describing what the style looks like. Okay. So we're going to kick it off with runes. Now, shout out to Less Than 3. He's a member of my Midland Academy. He's a Casio main in EU. I believe he's like master tier, GM, something like that. Very good Casio player, and as I was starting my Casio journey, I asked for his perspective, because obviously he plays a lot of Casio, and he gave me this rune page, and he has a very unique interpretation of Casio's identity, such that you're a battle mage, AP type Fiora, that really wants to get into the thick of it. Now, he predominantly, I mean, always going Conqueror, Presence of Mind, Legend Tenacity. Now, you can kind of alter between Last Stand and Coup de Grace, depending on how low you think you're going to drop. But the right-hand side's interesting. Now, I initially was very dubious about this. I was like, conditioning overgrowth? What, really? But it does make sense with Cassio's identity, because you are in that mid-game. You need that durability, and it'll kind of tie together with the itemization. It really helps you getting into people's range, not being too scared to take damage. I guess really kind of works with that whole identity of building an HP mythic, that sort of thing. Allows you to get into the thick of the fights. Now, you can go bone plating if you really want to in some of those burst-oriented matchups. You can go second win in some of those poke-oriented matchups. But if you're good and confident in your matchups and you can get away with conditioning overgrowth, it feels very nice. So before you rule it off, give it a go, try it out. And I would urge you to kind of get a feel for it. Unflinching, also definitely viable. Maybe a little bit overkill because you've got Legend Tenacity here, but you know, I usually just default to these two. Now, again, the early AP versus ability haste, that is largely preferential as well. I tend to go the ability haste every single time. It just scales a little bit better, and I like it. For early solo kills, the additional AP is nice. But again, it depends if you want that little bit of early strength versus scaling. That's totally up to you. Now, yes, there are many other secondary rune choices. You can go Domination. Taste of Blood is still really good. I know some Casios do like going Ravenous, even though it's nerfed. You know, ultimately, you can find what you like. I just, for me, this rune setup just feels very coherent with the identity that I'm going for. And we don't usually see Phase Rush at all anymore, because Cosmic Drive passive covers for that regardless. So I think that Conqueror is pretty much the way to go always, at least with this setup. Now, for summoners, I, funnily enough, have only ever been going Ignite. This may seem suicidal or chaotic. It is chaotic. And I'm just very confident in getting my early solo kills. And the guy in the MLA, Lesson, he also said to me, Curtis, just try Ignite. Because I was the opposite of this. I came from a background of Casio where I was playing super conservative. You really need TP because you have a weak landing phase. Well, no. In a way, yes, you do have a weak landing phase, but there's a lot of kill threat. You have a lot of kill threat in the early lane. So with this style that I'm going to be outlining today, if you're confident in your micro and you really understand your matchups, you can be getting level 3, level 4 solo kills a lot. And the premise is that offense is your defense. And I've been loving it. I've been really loving it. And yes, there are games where I struggle because I don't have TP. But across the board, I found that the use cases of Ignite have really got the ball rolling for me. And once I get that 1 or 2 kills, you know, Casio can just snowball out of control. So it is preferential, again, depending on the style you like. For me, I go a very aggressive style, going for level 2 first, going for those early solo kills, and it ends up working out very well for me. TP is also completely viable. Now, against situational defensive summoners, pretty straightforward. Exhaust for burst mitigation, good kind of scaling into the game. Barrier, better in the early game for burst mitigation. And then cleanse into Lysandra, etc. TF when you need it situationally. Now for the build. Strap yourself in. Holy moly. This is where, you know, the Reddit analysts are going to come scurrying out of their little holes here, trying to take me down. But I'm going to push back. And I'm going to stand my ground here and explain the Casio itemization. Okay. So start on the left-hand side here. Tier. Always start tier. You want to get that stacking up nice and early. I tend to go for an early Dark Seal every single game. I think it feels very nice with Casio. Snowball oriented gives you a little bit of durability. If you want the extra strength, you could go Dark Seal and Doran's. That is purely preferential. Sometimes I go for both, mainly just for Dark Seal. Now, Casio probably has some of the most versatile itemization in the game right now. All of these 4 mythics have a place, depending on your style, depending on the compositions, depending on the way you like to play Cassiopeia. For me, I've done a lot of testing with a range of these differing mythics. I've come to a few different conclusions. Number one, Riftmaker is very viable when you are versing a composition that is like very melee and very low range, and you like versing a lot of bruisers where you're just going to be like a machine gun turret that's not really going to be moving that much. They're going to be coming to you, and you kind of want to stand your ground. I personally don't like Riftmaker because I hate delaying my mana, and I feel like I just go too much, and I don't like not having the Lost Chapter early game. I feel like the Lost Chapter is a really big spike. I know that Casio mains in my server, some of them really do like Riftmaker. For me, it doesn't click. I strongly recommend giving it a go to see if it's for you. It definitely is very good from ahead once you start snowballing. But if you don't get ahead, if you ever start to play from behind with Riftmaker, it is terrible in my opinion because you're just going to go a lot. You're going to find it hard to use your offense as defense. That's just me personally. But it definitely has a place. Leandries. I never build Leandries anymore. I think that if you go for that glass cannon style of Casio, where you've got a lot of peel and you're going to want to play, I guess, more of like a stock standard control mage, this is viable. But for me, I found that it just makes you too squishy. You're too vulnerable. Because you're a low range champion, Mike Tyson analogy, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's not really necessary. You already have so much damage anyway. So for me, I would say 95% of the time, I'm actually going Everfrost. And I know a lot of Cassiopeia one-tricks are critical of Everfrost, but for me, it's cheap as chips, 2800. The active on it is invaluable. It's so versatile. It's good for chain ceasing, good for peeling, good for escaping, like getting collapsed on. It's good in so many scenarios. And I found that because this already gives you a lot of durability and you're getting durability from your second and third item, Crown feels a little bit overkill. I do think Crown has a place in certain compositions. I know one of the guys in the MLA was talking to me about how he likes it into like high ranges like Zereths and stuff like that, so he can mitigate some of the poke in mid game. Look, at the end of the day, it does have a place, even into some heavy burst comps. I've just found that Everfrost is suffice, and so I just don't like it. I feel like the passive gets proc too much, and I'd rather the active of Everfrost. So again, try around, see what you like. For me, I'm a big fan of Everfrost. Okay, now a few other points here. Second item. Now, we're on the new patch right now. So patch 11.24, there was a recent buff to Archangels, which reduced its cost by something like 400. It is in cheap as chips right now. So my hunch is that the stock standard build path is going to be something like boom, boom, boom. So like straight into Archangel's second item, boom, 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 because it's just way too cheap. And by the time you build this item, you're very, very close to upgrading it straight into Ceros. I think usually I'm getting it with like a minute off straight upgrading it. Like I've nearly finished stacking my tier. So you're basically getting straight into Seraphs, which makes you tanky. You get a lot of healing. Yes, you're lacking a lot of, you get ability haste from the passive on it, so basically nets out to similar what you would get from Cosmic Drive anyway, given Cosmic Drive got nerfed and it's quite a bit more expensive. I feel as though Archangels is going to be the superior second item, although you are going to miss out on the movement speed passive here from the Cosmic Drive, which is a pain in the ass. So if you feel as though you need that self-peel and that kind of that movement speed, Cosmic Drive is still a completely viable second item. So it might even be boom, 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 and then Sarah straight into Cosmic Drive 2 and 3. I'm assuming that's going to be the most common build path and what I've actually been going recently on patch 11.24. But this is where things get interesting, and this is where my and the MLA, our interpretation of Cassio's identity shifts from the rest of the Casio community. I am a massive fan of building defensive items on Cassiopeia. If you actually look at my OPGG, which you'll see later on in the guide, I've been building gargoyles, I would say 85% of the time. And the reason being is that once you get this and this, or especially these 3 items, or sometimes even 2, before the Archangel's buff, I was actually going Everfrost into Cosmic Drive, sitting on tier, and then going straight gargoyles. But any of these combinations, you are so tanky. You've got overgrowth conditioning, you've got HP from Everfrost, HP from Archangels, HP from Cosmic Drive. With gargoyles, you already have plenty of damage, and Casio already has so much base damage. You're just an unkillable demon lord. You don't need the crown, because this, you can proc the active on it when you're getting bursted down. It allows you to all in on that Mike Tyson style, just getting into the fights, closing the gap without really being scared. Much easier. And one of the biggest things I struggled with Casio last year, not building a defensive style, kind of going only Leandries, was that I just kind of died getting into range a lot. I found it very difficult to get into the fights, and this 3rd item or 4th item, defensive item, really helps with that. So I strongly recommend playing around with this. Even if you do it as your 4th item, 3rd item, play around with it. Yes, your damage is going to be a little bit lower, but the durability you'll experience is insane. And trust me, you're going to already have enough damage with these 3 items anyway. And so this is where my interpretation of Cassio's identity shifts a little bit. Now, if you feel as though they have a lot of MR and they're low range, Abyssal Master is great. If they're full AD, Frozen Heart is also excellent. And then usually 5th item or 6th item, I'll round it off with another AP item, because you only need 1 defensive item with like a Shadow Flame or like a Death Cap or something like that. Now, a few extra little notes here. Barons are going to be much slower with this build path, because you don't have the luxury of, Leandries anymore. So keep in mind that your Baron damage is much lower. If you go Riftmaker, you're going to go a lot, so you're not going to be able to do Barons as much. That's also one of the trade-offs. And your front to back with the tanky build is much worse. I wouldn't really even call Casio a front to back champion with this build path. Yes, you can front to back, but you're nowhere near as that. You're just not that front to back glass cannon mage anymore. You're more of like a battle mage. You're getting into the thick of it. You're making picks. You're more of like a 1v9 type champion. Something to keep in mind. And last little point here I'll make is that any of the defensive paths from behind are bad. So if I get behind in the early game, I won't go defensive at all. I'll just go boom, like these 3 items, and then just go Shadow Flame, Death Cap, whatever I need. Because building defensive from behind doesn't make any sense. Last little note here, Sweeper, very important on Casio for making creative picks in mid-game. We'll get to that later. And then Magi's, especially with this very durable setup, is a great purchase, because you're getting Dark Seal nice and early as well. So a lot to take in here. I think it will make more sense when we get into the examples. If you have any questions, actually, even before you ask questions, just try it out, okay? Don't sit there and be a Reddit analyst. Try it out. See how it feels for you. Okay, so we're getting to the thick of it now. We're getting into the actual Casio specifics, the details. QW usage. This is 80% of Cassiopeia. If any of you have watched my Z guide, where the Z-WEQ combo, that was like the bread and butter of the champion. This is the same thing for Casio. If you can get your Q and W usage down pat, 80% of Casio is done. Like you're getting there, you're getting most of the way. Once you understand the theory of these abilities, the rest is history. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at a few clips breaking down the fundamentals of the Q and W usage. And yeah, see you on the other side. Alright, so diving into QW usage. First one here is using the Q movement speed to close the gap. So this is a clip where you'll see I use my Q, and notice how I don't E. I just keep walking forward. That gets me into the W range, and then I'm able to kill. This is a very, very important fundamental with Casio to understand. And a big mistake I see with people, we'll see this again, I'll show some common mistakes, is that they'll Q from max range, they'll go for like 1E, and they'll realize that they can't get in range for another Q, or the enemy's too far away, or they can't get in range to W. So it's a good habit to get into, at least to play around with. Using Q to close the gap, get into W range first. Don't E, hold your E, and then you can get the guaranteed kill. Something to keep in mind moving forward. Very, very important fundamental. Using Q movement speed to avoid skill shots. So these very skill shot oriented matchups, landing that Q my intention is never really to hit the E. I'm just using that movement speed to bait out abilities. Then I've created that window, then I can trade. Nice little neat tip. Now we've got reactive versus proactive Q usage. There are some matchups where you can't just throw your Q out and then E them. You need to be a little bit more careful with how you use your Q. So into champions with gap closers, we're talking Fizz, we're talking LeBlanc, we're talking Cassidon. You've got to be very careful. So this is a perfect example. Look at this. This is where I should have held my abilities reactively, but look at that. Now I get shit on because I didn't use my ability reactively. So what I should do in theory is walk up, wait for the LeBlanc to go on to me, then W, which will allow me to guarantee my Q, and then I can just kill the LeBlanc pretty easily. But because I had no Q, I've got no poison, I just lose this really hard. And I end up getting solo killed there. So when you're doing your own reviews, make sure that you're hyper aware, or ask yourself, was I aware, or could I have used my Q reactively or proactively? Very important, fundamental there. Again, same thing here with Cassidon. Look at that, boom, and I just lose the trade just because I'm not using my ability proactively. W placement, a very big one. You want to be placing your W slightly behind the model, or kind of like the direction of where they're going to go. So as you can see, Kane comes in for a little bit of a gank. I know that Kane is only ever going to go this way, so look where I place my W. Right there, and he has nowhere to go. It runs into my Q, and then we're able to get a nice little kill because of my W placement. Same thing here. Right behind, forces them to walk forward and panic, and then if my jungler's there, they're completely screwed. Now, as we were talking before about proactive and reactive Q usage, the same thing applies with W usage. Here, I wasn't familiar with versing Akshan, and I didn't realize that you actually have to use your W proactively, especially if you can get one shot. Because here I tried to use it reactively, but where do I put it? He's already landed his abilities, all his damage onto me. So in some of these matchups like Akshan, you actually got to use your W first to prevent them from ever using their ability, like the hook shot, I think it's called the heroic swing, in which you wouldn't even be able to use the swing in the first place. If I just W'd him here, he's just dead. I W him and Q him, I can just run him down. But I didn't, and I got punished for it. Again, so something I would urge you to look for in your reviews. Another one, kiting through Ws, pretty straightforward. When you place your W down and you are getting chased down, do what I do here. Kite through your W. Don't run away from your W. This can save you in many scenarios. Okay, so this is a very, very big one. Kind of tying into the first tip, you want to close that gap with a Q or tether. If you're very good with tethering, you can actually start the trade with W. So check this out. So I go for a Q. Seraphine kind of peels back with her E. Then I walk forward with the remaining movement speed, and I get straight into W range, which allows me to land my Q guaranteed because they're slowed. A bad habit I see with a lot of Cassios is that they underutilize the slow from the W, which they underestimate its ability to help you land the follow-up Q. So if you're very good at kind of like tethering and getting into someone's range, you can do this sort of thing, which guarantees that you land a lot of follow-up damage. Keep that in mind. And again, the obvious flash W, great for setting up ganks and things like that. Pretty straightforward. Very effective gank setup tool. So if you see anyone near you, and all-in tool because they can't flash, and this is why I love Ignite as well. Here was probably a little bit overkill, but as you can see, Ignite with this flash W, it's a bloody dangerous combo. And last one in here, just to keep in mind, Miasma does stop channels, things like Nunu, snowballs, the TPs, and things like that. So just like that, it will just stop the channel. Keep in mind, Akshan's hookshot is not a channel. I realized that the hard way. So something to keep in mind moving forward, guys. Pretty straightforward. So these are my main tips for QW usage. If you can really implement a lot of these things and think about this in your own reviews, in your own games, you're going to be 80% of the way there, guys. I see some terrible Casio fundamentals in a lot of my reviews. Please don't make these mistakes. Now, in the community Q&A, I saw a lot of questions asking about how do you play waves into differing matchups. So what I did, I know this is, it is quite general, but I tried to group up different types of matchups in a way so that I can explain how I play a lot of the waves. Again, this is my interpretation of how I play the waves given my style. So we've got the low range mages and semi-melees, things like Silas, Viger, Echo. In these matchups, I tend to try and keep the wave slightly neutral or slightly my side. That allows me to generate a lot of kill threat. And if they don't touch the wave and they're playing ultra conservatively, I'll just shove and bounce the wave and then bring it back onto my side. If a Silas has the wave on my side, if the wave is on my side and versing a Silas, they can't play the game because they can't use their E aggressively. I can chase them down. I have a lot of freedom. So in a lot of these matchups, that's what I like to do. Either one or two of these things here, which are basically the same thing, just a different way of bringing it about. Into the high range matchups and low cooldown mages, we're going to do a lot of reviews at the end of this VOD of me playing these matchups, because I know a lot of people struggle into these matchups. There's three options. Number one, keep neutral, match shove. I would say that's probably my go-to strategy. I'm probably doing this 85% of the time. Definitely not easy to do, but it's doable, and I'll show you how. You can keep shoving, keep shoving, which is kind of using offense as your defense. This one I would say is not as viable anymore. You kind of used to be able to do it, but it's very, very difficult to do. And I think there would need to be a significant skill gap in order to do that. So I put it there, but it's not really viable. And you can theoretically pull the wave for gank. So if you have a very gank-oriented jungler, you feel as though you can set up a gank, this is also completely viable. So usually it's these two here. With it 85% of the time I'm doing this. Now the third one, we kind of have these pure melees, where it's either you stack 3 waves into harass under tower, but if you're versing a bad Kiana or a bad Fizz and they touch the wave level 1, let them shove into you because they won't be able to crash the wave and you can hold on to your side. Now, one little thing here. There is another category that I did think of that I kind of didn't want to make it a category, but there's two champions that spring to mind. There's Tristana and there is Akshan. Into these two champions, what I actually like to do is I like to just hold the wave right on my side and keep it on my side as long as possible. And then if they mess up, if they overstep, I'll just, walk up, go for a W onto them and chase them down. Otherwise, they're either going to die to a gank or I'm just going to get free farm either way. Because Tristana's just going to keep shoving me in until they misstep and I'll kill them, usually post first base. But yeah, usually I just hold the wave predominantly on my side. Now, last little thing here. A lot of people have kind of outlined to me that they struggle to stack 3 waves. They don't know how to stack 3 waves into these pure melees that don't really thin the wave that well. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm just going to show you a quick little clip of how I would play the waves into a Fizz. And I played this game yesterday. Really short, sharp little clip here, guys. So here we go. This is the Casio versus Fizz. And all I'm trying to do is just be very, very conservative here. I'm just trying to get a slight minion advantage. Usually what the Fizz is going to do, or Kiana level 1 will do, is they will hit the wave, just last hit. And as long as I last hit, and I don't spend too much resources onto the enemy, I really kind of keep my range. I'm not going too aggressive. Yes, I am going to make a sacrifice in terms of the trades that I can do level 1 and 2 for this. But I will be able to make up for it on the back end. And as you can see here, the Fizz is simply last hitting. He's doing a pretty good job of last hitting, and he is able to last hit them. But now, as you can see, I've got the slight minion advantage. And I've now got my level 2. And now I can just zone him. And now I can just last hit. And now Fizz won't be able to touch the wave basically at all anymore. So I'm just last hitting. Last hitting with my E. Boom. If he walks up, I will auto E him. Go for little trades every now and then. If he walks up, auto. Just last hitting still. And as you can see, I'm actively thinking about this next wave over here, when it's actually going to arrive. Trying to stack this wave together. Got this next wave stacking as well. So the key is being ultra conservative in your last hits, trying to time that last hit, not going overly aggressive on your trades and not taking too much minion aggro, making sure you're letting them last hit every now and then. And now look at this massive setup I've got here. Big wave under tower. Boom. Look at that. And now I can just do whatever I want. I can harass under tower. I can go for a tempo reset. It's really up to you and your interpretation of the matchup. But for me, I like to stay, harass under tower, make their life miserable. And then I'm healthy enough to kind of, do whatever I want to do with the wave. So again, pretty straightforward. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of a reference point if you are struggling with stacking waves into one of these melee matchups. Now for some final laning tips. Don't be afraid to limit test in the early game. Go for those level 2, level 3 all-ins. And instead of talking about it, I'm going to show you a few little clips here to give you a little bit of a reference point. So here we go. This is me playing Casio into a Malzahar matchup. I've kind of traded relatively heavy levels 1 to 3. Malzahar steps up. I flash W. Boom. Pretty straightforward here, guys. As you can see, and this is why I love Ignite. I'm going to flash W on their face, and I'm going to get that early solo kill. This is seemed to work for me very reliably in a wide variety of matchups. This one's a Corki. I get the level 2 first, because I'm trying to play for the level 2. He steps up a little bit too aggressively here at level 2, as you'll see in a second. Trying to bait him in. Boom. He missteps once, and I'm able to flash forward with Ignite and get that solo kill. Really straightforward. Now, this is actually from a clip of Corito from the MLA. A member we have in the MLA, where he actually goes for a level 1/level 2 all-in, and ends up getting a solo kill just by utilizing auto attacks well. This is a tip that I will talk about, is that you got to make sure that you're utilizing those early auto attacks to stack up that Conqueror here. So let's dive into this one to show you how this looks like. Here we go. Walks up very aggressively. Sees that Orianna overstepped. Auto E, auto E, auto E, auto E, E. Boom. Kill. Really straightforward stuff. That's even without Ignite. As you can see, a lot of kill threat in the early game. Something that would urge you to really limit test, because this is a pivotal part of playing this Mike Tyson style of Cassiopeia. So another tip here that is important to consider is that you got to be quite careful with your mana rationing. If you are limit testing and trying to go for these early all-ins, you might find yourself going a lot. And since your wave clear is quite low, if you do go and especially if you go Ignite, you're going to be trapped in lane and you're going to be screwed. So yes, it is good to go for those, limit test all-ins, but keep in mind, it is a bit of a feast or famine style. If you mess up, whether it's mechanically or you don't know your limits, you're going to dig yourself a little bit of a hole, and that's inevitable. Trust me, I've done that many, many times, but just keep in mind, if you are going to plan to go for the all-in, make sure that you have enough mana to actually go for the all-in. Otherwise, you're going to be flashing in and you're not going to be able to finish them off. Try not to mindlessly shove. It really limits your options for all-ins. And this was one of the bad habits that I had with Casio, was that, I would continuously mindlessly shove. A very big common mistake of mine, and I see it with a lot of Cassiopeia players. Just relax. Let the weight, hold the weight. That's why I love neutral state. I think neutral state in lane as a Casio is so good, because it just really, it gives you plenty of options with how you can play your trades. Keep that in mind. And if you miss your kill window early, you will go in, like I said, and it can screw you for the next few minutes of the game, just to reiterate what I said before. And jungle tracking is basically an essential skill if you are going to play this early aggressive style. There's been many times where I've tried to do this, and I have died to ganks, so you've got to be quite careful. You either, number one, you're aware of where they're starting. Number two, like where exactly they're going to be coming from, when you need to ward, and how much kill threat that champion has onto you. So sometimes I've actually had to alter how aggressive I've been able to play because I'm versing a Shaco or something like that. So it's, definitely important to consider moving forward. All right, now R usage. This is probably the remaining 20% of Casio. What we're going to do is take a look at a series of clips highlighting how to properly use R and all the differing R fundamentals. Okay, so diving into the R usage fundamentals, first little one here. I'm not too good at it, but I know it is quite viable. You can hide your R animation under tower. So as you can see here, I'm kind of posted up in a bit of a siege scenario. I am looking for the kill onto this Jace. I know I'm really fed right now. I have my Everfrost available, my ultimate available, and I knew that I'm in this isolated 1v1 right now. So as you can see, I'm trying to lull him into a sense of safety just by auto-attacking the tower. And the thing is that your auto-attack animation looks very similar to your R animation. So what you can actually do is, like, you can pretend that you're auto-attacking and they're going to get caught off guard, and then you can actually kill them. So take a look at this. You have actually look at the auto-attack animation. Like, the champion kind of like leans forward. It looks like you're auto attacking. I didn't time it perfectly. That was a little bit off, like in terms of the rhythm of my auto attacks. But as you can see, it is something that is possible. This was just the only the closest clip that I could get from one of my recent games, because it's not a very common thing that happens. But again, something to play around with. Timing all-ins with last hits and hiding your intention with R usage, very important. This is kind of your way out of a lot of these higher range matchups. You are going to probably have to go for an R flash or something like that. So as you can see here, I'm waiting for Orianna to go in for a last hit here, and then I'm going to time my my all-in with one of those last hits. Pretty straightforward. And this is, I would say, something I do very, very regularly. Walking back, boom, timing it with the last hit. Pretty straightforward stuff. don't be afraid to use your R flash like that. Now this is, I love doing this one. So here I'm in the side lane and I actually end up getting collapsed on. One of the things, because they know I have R. And if they know I have R, as soon as I turn around, they're going to turn around. So I'm never going to hit my R stun anyway. So a lot of the time what you'll see me do is you'll see me actually kind of turn around to fake that I'm going to use R and overwhelm their mental stacks. And the longer you hold your R, the more perceived threat you're going to, impose on your enemies. So take a look at this. I'm getting collapsed on. Look what I do. I turn around just to W, and they're panicking. They're like, oh my god, Cassio's not using R. They can't chase. And so I'm just holding it. I just hold my R. A lot of casters will just panic, and I hold. Then I use it. So the longer you can hold it, the better off you're going to be. Now here, this could have easily been like I could have just died, but I end up trading 2 kills for 1, just to limit test. It's just something to keep in mind, something to play around with. Don't just rush your Rs. Rushing Rs is a big problem with noob Cassiopeias. Sometimes, when you are versing these higher range comps, or you're losing and you're desperate, you're getting sieged upon, you do have to be the engage. And this is what I do also love about this setup, how tanky I am. At this point, I have my Cosmic Drive, I had my Everfrost, I have my Gargoyles. Check this out. I can actually be the engage. And I just R-flash, boom, and we're able to get a pretty good fight off. I'm not really scared to do so, because I'm so goddamn tanky. So sometimes you are in situations, sticky situations, whether it's a 1v2, whether you're in a team fight, you got to do what you got to do. This is another scenario. End up getting collapsed on, I think, by the Victor and the Casio. Sorry, Caitlyn. Victor and the Caitlyn. And I knew that I was just going to get kind of now ranged. So what did I have to do? I turned around and then just R-flash. And that gets me out of the play. So don't be afraid to do this sort of thing. It sometimes is necessary. Now, one of the most important fundamentals here is holding your R to maximize threat in team fights. You were talking about it a little bit before in the 2v1 scenario. In team fights, it's even more important. So let's just say you have, you don't need to kind of be the quote-unquote engaged. The fight's already started, whether it's an objective or someone else is already in, or they're trapped. It's good to just hold your R, again, to overwhelm their mental state, because they don't want to face into you to get stunned, right? So take a look at this. I walk in, and I end up starting the fight with my Q and my W and my Everfrost. Then I R. Look at that. So beautiful. Look at Vlad. Imagine being Vlad in this scenario, seeing Cassio's walking up, and then he's like, well, when do I turn around? When do I engage? Like, when is he going to use it? So I walk my Q, then I use my Everfrost, and I use my W, and then finally Vlad's like, screw it. Maybe he doesn't have it, and then he turns around and then gets nailed. I love doing that. Very, very important Casio fundamentals. So again, if you can implement on these R little tips alongside the QW tips, you're going to be rock and rolling. No matter how good or bad you are mechanically, if you can do those, you're most of the way there, guys. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to take a look at the top 5 most common mistakes with Casio players. So we're going to take a look at a few clips. No theory today. We're full pragmatic mode today. Let's get right into the clips. All right, so mistake number 1, wasting Q. Either you're using your Q with no intention, therefore resulting in a loss of lane control. Now, I don't do this that often, so I actually struggled to find some clips. I know that sounds incredibly egotistical, but I did find a few little examples here. I don't show it too well, but you kind of get the point. I'm kind of using Q with a very blasé mentality. I'm kind of skimming forward here a little bit. And I'm missing these Qs, and as a result of missing these Qs, Victor's then able to kind of trade onto me on the back end. So the point I'm trying to get across here is that every single Q matters, and you can't have a blasé mentality when it comes to using Q, because every Q matters a metric ton. You're going to allow them to then trade onto you, because when you don't have Q, you're borderline useless. So keep in mind, Q accuracy is a big deal. And having intention with your Qs. Are they timing it? Are they walking up for a last hit? Why are they walking up? Is there even any reason for them to walk up? That sort of thing. Mistake number 2, not using Q movement speed to close the gap. We kind of spoke about this within the QW usage, but here's a perfect example. This was earlier on in my Casio journey. I see the Graves walk back into his jungle, and I know that he doesn't have flash from like a level 1 play. Look what I do here. I flash Q and E. But look at this. I don't kill him. So then I auto EE. He doesn't die. So what should I have done? I should have flash Q'd. Run. Don't E at all. Don't auto. Run. Then get him range for the second Q. And then I'll finish him off guaranteed. Very big mistake. And you see this with a lot of Casios. Like I said, tying back to that fundamental in the QW usage slide. This was one of my earlier Casio VODs here when I was kind of experimenting with the style, and I had to completely shift my mindset to being that Mike Tyson aggressive style of Casio. And even looking at this now, and even though this wasn't that long ago, it's like 30, 40 games ago, it makes me feel sick. It's just, it's just wrong mindset. And as you can see, Syndra walks up. I Q, E. I'm not using my Q movement speed to close the gap in W. I'm not willing to flash on his head. Nothing. I'm just playing ultra conservative. This is what most Casio players' gameplay will look like. They go for some all-in. They rush their E's. They don't close the gap to get a W range. They're not willing to use their flash aggressively. This is what it will look like. Just really poor quality W's. And I just missed a solo kill. Just like that. End of review. End of review. Mistake number 3, rushing W's and not holding enough. This was actually a clip from one of my MLA members, a Casio man, Dios. Shout out Dios. He gets engaged upon by Jason Hammerform, ends up rushing his W, and this is a common mistake I see with Casio players, is straight up rushing W's. Hold the goddamn W until they've actually used their abilities, then make them panic, then W after. There's a beautiful video on YouTube explaining this by Lol Dobby. If anyone's seen his content, Lol Dobby, some of you probably are familiar with him. I think he does a review of Korea's top Casio player. What makes that Casio player in Korea so good is his W usage. He holds his W magnificently. So here, for example, just sorry to pause so much. He gets engaged upon by the Jace and then instantly uses Panic's W. Now imagine there if Dios here Q'd, used the movement speed, got in range with W, Jace is dead. Jace just dies. So you gotta weed this bad habit out. You really gotta weed this. And this is me. Same thing here. Look at this one. Kassadin R's in. Kassadin obviously R's on cooldown. Why would I W? Why would I W? Makes no sense. Just Q. E. Auto E. E. Then W as his R's about to come up. Then I would potentially get a kill. W usage it just makes the difference tenfold. Same thing here. Random max range. Oh, I want to vomit looking at this. Just want to vomit. Oh, makes me cringe. Okay, so we got mistake number 4. Rushing R's, another popular one. Akshan here comes Tarzaning into my face. And I just panic R, is what I call panic R's. You know, you got to weed these ones out as well. What am I doing? Just hold the goddamn R, hold your W, relax. Right? People are going to panic when they're close to you because remember, you're Mike Tyson. No one wants to be close to Mike Tyson, do they? If you're in the ring with Mike Tyson and you're in range, and you're in striking distance, everyone's going to panic. So you hold for that 0.5, that 1 second. See what they do first, then use your W or R, okay? And then mistake number 5, a very common one, shoving way too fast. So one of the common strategies if you're playing this aggressive style is you want to get level 2 first, right? So you want the wave still to be in a somewhat neutral state position while you're level 2, so you have plenty of room to actually all in. If you shove too fast, this is what it will look like. I'm thinking that I'm, super, super strong. I'm shoving, I'm just autoing way too much here. Thinking, I got to get the shove, And yes, I do technically have to get a slight minion advantage, but not like this whatsoever. And then take a look. By the time I'm even going to get level 2, look at the wave state. The wave's right here. I'm not going to be able to take any good trade into TF when he's sitting on his tower. Impossible. So you need to weed this one out as well if you are going to be looking for aggressive level 2 trades. Alright, so we're getting into the thick of the guide now. We're getting into the mid-game stuff. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to share a few little pieces of advice, and then we're going to just dive into a bunch of examples of mid-games. Because mid-game, I think, according to the community Q&A, was a big problem with a lot of Casio players. So I don't want to talk too much here. We're just going to get straight into a bunch of examples. So really simply put, the overarching mindset you're going to have or want to have is that you are the carry. You want the CS, you want the jungle camps, you want everything. You are a vacuum around the map. And the 3 core pillars of mid-game Casio are, number 1, creative picks via bush camping, sitting around corners, beating them to the punch. And what I mean by beating them to the punch is just that. If there's a fight that's going to happen, you're going to be the one that strikes first. Very important. You want the enemy to come to you. Casio hates running into the enemy. she wants to be either the one kiting back or already playing kind of an uneven fight. She wants people to come to her. That way it's easier for her to land her stun. She doesn't have to be flashing forward. This will make sense if you are already a Casio main. And the last one, you want to be balancing split pushing versus grouping. And this is something that is very hard to teach without actively coaching you individually. But I'm going to try and really get across this point within the mid games we're about to dive into. But this is largely based off win cons, objectives available, and your interpretation of, the way you're going to win the game. It really depends on many, many variables. So we're going to try and get into this in the examples. So let's dive straight in. All right, so the way we're going to do this, I'm going to go over, I think, two or three unique team fight examples, just because I think they're very telling of the type of situations that you're going to be in. And then we're actually going to go over two whole entire mid games that I played somewhat recently on this account, okay, from 15 minutes onwards, and really kind of talk through my mindset. So this was a team fight that I thought was really interesting. I obviously wanted to get to the objective early. I'm quite fed. I'm 8-1. I've got 3 items, got my Everfrost, I got my Archangels, got my Cosmic Drive, I'm rock and rolling. So I obviously want to get to the objective first because I want them to come to me, right? Getting to objectives first allows me to get the better positioning and make them come to me. Now note, I don't have flash, so it's actually very hard for me to get into the enemy, get into their face. Now what happens, I end up starting the dragon here, trying to pull it out a little bit, make them come to us, but then Jace does a really good job of assassinating my jungler on the back end. So know how here, immediately, we can't get onto the enemy anymore. Xayah split, GP's here, we have no engage, very poor engage into a Kindred and Liss and Thresh, disengage with Jace on the side. Screw this, get me out of this. I know this is not the fight that Cassio wants because I'm outranged, we have very little engage, I have no flash, and my jungler's dead. So look what I do, I kind of just back up, and then I notice that they kind of split a little bit. I see that they're kind of CC'd, I see Jace is split. So because, I'm Mike Tyson now, I want to close the gap. I want to get creative. So I kind of walk up, dodge the Q, go for an Everfrost. Now, I'm playing a somewhat decent front-to-back fight, and just chasing him. Now, notice how in my mind, I'm like water. I'm very adaptable. And this is one of the other key themes in this, is that there's no such thing as like a quote-unquote a clean, perfect team fight. You're always going to have a lot of these skirmishes where you're just kind of posturing around the side, looking for a little angle, see if you can kind of somewhat close the gap and pick off split targets. And this is what Casio is all about. So, yep, I didn't really want to fight the dragon, but if they're split off, I'm going to be very adaptable, and I'm going to be there to, pick off split targets. Now I'm able to walk forward, and then boom, nice little pick on the back end. I think it's a very messy fight, but very telling of the classic fight that you will have with Casio. Now, again, later on in that game, look at my comp. No one else is, really that strong. And they have an Ezreal and a Jace, which is a pain in the ass for Cassiopeia because you simply just get outranged. Now, obviously, what I'm trying to do is get to the objective nice and early. Baron's coming up in 15 seconds. So I want to obviously do the Baron on spawn and make them come to us or make a pick. So I'm trying to look for a little pick angle, maybe camp in a brush or something like that. But the enemy team did a really good job of just shoving out mid. And they just shoved down mid. And we didn't really feel confident starting it. Now this, as you can already see, this is not a good fight for Casio, isn't it? Number one, the enemy is really far away. They're not coming to me. I can't engage on anyone. I'm just going to get kited. My team is playing really far away from me. This is a really hard Casio fight. So I'm trying to get, I'm like, wait for me, please, please, please. I'm trying to get in. I'm getting kited back. Now the fight is split. What do? Do I run through the threshold? Jace has already flashed out. Kindred's here with all, what do I do? What do I do? So notice I'm just very patient. I'm waiting for my moment. Looking for a little Q, movement speed, looking for a W there, not end up landing it. And notice how I'm just basically useless, trying to find a way in. But then someone engages for me, and my only way in, flash R, boom. Flash R, pick up 2 kills, turn that into a Baron. And that's it, really straightforward. So notice how, you can see the conditions that I'm looking for, and sometimes, this isn't the fight that I want. This is not the type of fight. I don't want to have to flash forward, but I kind of have to. I just have to. Based off, if the enemies are really good, they're going to kite you out. So ideally, even before this, we either start the objectives and turn because they're going to be coming to us, which probably would have been the better call here in hindsight, or I would have like camped over here and tried to face check some noob that, punish some noob that face checks a brush, ideally. So as you can start to see, one of the key themes here is that I want them to come to me. I don't want to run into them because it makes my life hard. But sometimes, solo queue's chaotic. You got to do what you got to do. All right, so moving forward. This is a classic mid-game rundown. So let's take a look at the game state. I dominated this Kiana in lane. I'm 9-2. So this is a classic game from ahead where, it's a pretty hard game. I mean, bot lane struggling big time. I would say Nas is doing okay, but down a bit assist, but not too bad. And Kha'Zix is doing okay, but I would say behind the lead, but doing okay. I've got pretty good CS. I've got this is kind of before the crown nerf, and this is when Cosmic Gyre was obviously quite strong, and this is when I was kind of playing around with differing itemization. So notice here in this VOD, I'm not going to play it perfectly, but I'm going to try and criticize my own gameplay, maybe what I would do now versus 20 games ago, and also kind of talk about what my mindset is. So straight away in chat, I'm thinking to myself, okay, Dragon's coming up, Kha'Zix hover me instead. I feel pretty confident being able to 1v2. I try to loop around the Kiana here to make a pick. I remember here my intention was either to, if I sit here and Kiana tries to escape, she's going to face check me, I can make a pick. If she runs away, I'm around here, and if she hits the tower, I can just collapse onto her anyway. So by moving over here, I'm basically guaranteeing that I get the kill anyway. So I wait for her to auto attack it, and I get a nice little pick. Now, I know that I can't siege. There's no point in me running mid. I mean, my AD carry supporter behind. I just want to play the side lane. I think this Kiana ends up escaping. I'm like, whatever. She's worth nothing anyway. She's cheaper chips. I'm conserving my flash. Now, Kha'Zix ends up trading me off. That's completely fine. I know they can't kill me. So, again, I'm a vacuum. So, I'm just trying to farm up. Just farm. So, fast forwarding a little bit. They end up collapsing onto me. But because I'm that Mike Tyson, I've got my 2 items. They can't do anything to me. And this is exactly what my champ's all about. My champ's all about being this raid boss in the side lane where they can't deal with me. So, shoving out, taking jungle camps, taking all their jungle camps. And then, again, same thing, looking for a pick. I know that they're going to go for this blue buff. I know Lee's going to be looking for these jungle camps. Boom. So notice how the same premise. I'm looking for a lot of farm, and I'm looking for creative picks. I'm thinking about not where they are now, but where they're going to be. And notice, this is because I didn't show on any vision here. And this is also why sweeper is very important. And I always try to sweep as much as I can. Here, I thought there was going to be like lane wards or something like that. So someone could like TP behind me, so I just wanted to check. But, this is where sweeper would come in handy. But my overarching mindset is, I want to make picks. I want to get creative. I want to use the stealth. I want to think about where they're going to be. So I'm able to get a nice little pick, turn that into a blue buff, shove out the side waves again, shove, reset. And again, same thing, they try to kill me in the side lane. I'm just camping another bush. I think that guy's just tilted at this point. So fast forwarding. Lucian, struggling. I think Kha'Zix dies again, but still somewhat strong. Now I tell Nasus to go bot because I want to go top. Baron's the next objective. On the way through, I'm taking jungle camps. So notice the same thing. All I'm trying to do is shove, sweep, and get myself into a nice little pick position. Again, I don't care if my team dies, because I can 1v9 this game anyway. Cassio is a 1v9 carry a lot of the time. Unless, that guy was a genuine win con, I'm not going to waste my time. So all I'm trying to do right now is continually take jungle camps, let them waste their time, take my blue buff. Because my hypothesis was that I was the win con, constantly trying to sweep vision, clearing vision, sweeping again, trying to put myself in a position to go for a pick. Now, keep shoving, keep sweeping, 10 CS per minute, and I see that I have a little bit of a flank angle. Getting control for my team. Now just hovering my team. They go for me. They can't kill me. I have my gargoyles. I have my crown. I have everything. And this is why this build is so... Look, just take a look at this. Look how much durability I have. Even after I get Lee Sin kicked into the team, I don't even have to use flash. I get Kiana ulted. I'm getting killed by the Swain. I mean... I mean, I thought Lee was actually going to die there much sooner, but this is exactly how I like to play my Casio. This is why I'm confident I can make up for it. Yep, my team's going to die, but I'm confident I can make up for it on the back end. Look at that. Pretty straightforward stuff, and this is, a big mistake I see with Cassiopeia players is they're not willing to commit to that 1v9 type style. They think, my team's going to die. I mean, yeah, they are going to die. But, as long as you're versing a mid to low range composition, you can genuinely take over in the mid game like this. So fast forwarding a little bit, now I've got my 4 items. I'm literally a raid boss at this point. Same thing though, I'm not compensating. I'm not just running it down mid. Constantly taking jungle camps, camping in bushes, waiting for them to shove out the sides and move. Look at that. I'm not mindlessly showing on a wave. No. I'm thinking about where they're going to be, looking for these creative little picks. Shove outside. And I have a really beautiful analogy about farming in the mid game. With Casio, farming is, think of it as like an insurance policy, right? So, okay. Imagine if you were to... Okay, so farm isn't going to win you a game, nor is car insurance going to save your life. But it can kind of, in a way, it's like an oh shit mechanism. If the game goes to shit and some negative or unfortunate scenario or an unfortunate situation happens, just like you're on the road and some idiot bumps into you, scratches your car, crashes into you, something that was not anticipated, you couldn't anticipate it, it's kind of like a way of getting yourself out of a situation. In a way, that's the way I view farm. It's like, I don't need it to win the game, but it's going to basically guarantee that I'm safe. It's going to guarantee that I'm not going to lose rather than guarantee that I win, if that makes sense. So I always view farming as like that's why most of my games, you actually look at my OPGG, I don't have below 8.59 CS per minute most of the time. Like, I'm farming 8.5 minimum CS per minute. Because it's my, I'm a vacuum and I know it's my win con in a way. And notice how I'm not just randomly grouping mid-sieging. If I have to group as a fight, I will group like I am now. But I'm not just going to randomly siege because Casio has such low range. Why would Mike Tyson try to play the long-range game? He's not going to play the long-range game. I just want to be there for the skirmishes. I want to come in from the side, ideally, and just be there. That's my mindset. While farming as efficiently as possible. In between the deaths, I'm taking jungle camps, camping the jungle again, sweeping. Notice that's the same thing. I'm trying to put myself in situations where I'm sweeping, I'm hiding out of vision, using fog of war to close the gap. Because I can't be there like a Caitlyn sitting under tower. They're just going to know where I am. Okay, so shove, reset. Fast forwarding a little bit here. I think this game gets extended somehow. I can't remember. I think I throw somehow, but I can't remember what happened. Get into the objective nice and early. And this is why I love the Casio build as well. In the past, I would have been scared to do this sort of thing. I would have been scared to walk into no vision in front of their whole team. But when I have like Crown or Everfrost plus Gargoyles, I'm not scared at all. I'm happy to face tank. I can be my own front line. So pretty straightforward. We get Baron. Looks like it turns into a pretty straightforward front to back fight. One thing I will want to note here, because this game looks pretty bloody over. If you're in a scenario where your team gets caught, so I think here my Kha'Zix and my Lucian get caught, a lot of my default response on a lot of other champs is to kind of play conservative and kind of just do your job. But as Casio, like, I want to limit test in a way. I remember here was a 1v4 scenario. Instead of backing off, I'm thinking to myself, screw it. I'm going to really limit test. I'm going to see what I'm capable of. So I'm playing that, that lull dodge game. And to be honest, I didn't think Kiana still had ultimate here. I thought I was fine because I had gargoyles. I'm trying to limit test. End up picking off 1 or 2 here, I think. And I'm just dying. But, that's I'm happy to limit test it. That's my champion's identity. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll skim through a little bit just to highlight any key points before we go into the next mid game. Same thing. Here I actually probably should have grouped mid, but I was probably over-indexing on catching sideways. I think I remember I autopiloted a little bit here. I should have ran it down mid with the team rather than looking for picks. And sometimes it's kind of like a drug in a way. It's like, oh my god, I can get so strong. I can constantly farm. You still got to find that balance. Tying back to the 3 pillars of Cassiopeia's identity, mid-game identity. Yes, you got to balance side laning and grouping. If my team's sieging down mid and fighting over the inhib, I want to be there. This is ridiculous for me. Just kind of mindlessly grouping in the side lane. You can't let your ego get in the way. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do. You got to just be there with the team, even though if it feels really bad. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll skip forward to the end of this one. I think there were some juicy little parts in this VOD here. I think what happens... Oh, yeah, I remember what happens here. It ends up turning into a bit of a front-to-back team fight. Okay, let's look at this one. So the game actually gets really stalled out. They end up, like, coming back, and I think I give, like, two or three shutdowns. And then we end up, like, kind of doing a 5v5 mid. And we're starting to get outranged a little bit by the Jace. Jace gets, like, really strong. My Lucian's getting outranged as well. Swain ends up getting really strong. Kha'Zix can't team fight. But again, I felt quite confident in turning it around. I have my gargoyles. I have my crown. Playing that front to back. Pretty straightforward. And this is where, Casio can really shine as that 1v9 carry. And this is why you're also going to be really confident in your movement. I'm walking up. I'm willing to, avoid those skill shots. You just got to. I mean, if you're not willing to avoid those skill shots like Mike Tyson getting in range, I mean, you're just not going to be able to do damage. And this is a perfect example here. Try to get in range. I end up getting clipped, but I'm tanky enough to get into range, use my offense as my defense, boom, and then up cleaning up. Pretty straightforward. So, moving on to another more realistic mid-game. This was a game where I'm only 3-1, and I think we were actually behind this game. So, my bot lane got absolutely annihilated. Top lane was actually doing pretty well. Jungle was going relatively even, but Evelyn getting a free early game was quite concerning. And Akshan definitely wasn't weak either. So this was quite a hard game, and I think this one will be a lot more of a realistic one. So coming out of the base, the enemy had 2 dragons, and I remember saying, it's only Cloud Soul we can give. So lane assignments, I think here in a second, I try to swap up the lane assignments. I think here I try to make a pick. What happens here? Yeah, there's nothing. There's noise. Moving on. So I try to go to the side lane. This is what I want. I want to go to the side. I want to swap up the lane assignments. And ideally, I get hover from my jungler. We can give the drag. It's Cloud Soul. Who gives a shit? I can stall out the game. I'm only at 1 item. I need time to get to my 2 items here. And I know that they still can't kill me in the side lane because I got my crown. I have my exhaust. I'm all good. I think I end up typing in chat for the Echo to hover me. And I'm just shoving out. I'm completely fine with trading off that dragon. Shove, 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 shove. Shove, shove, shove. End up trading the dragon for tier 2. This is something I'll do often if I'm behind as Casio or my team's behind. I just want gold. So I'm happy to trade dragons or objectives for other towers. So I end up trading it. Getting my Cosmic Drive. Working towards my Gargoyles as my 3rd item this game. Because I felt very threatened by the Evelyn and their Lucian. So here we go. My team ends up looking for a little bit of a fight here. I think they go for the Rift. I can't remember what happens here, so we'll take a look. Aurelia goes in for a TP play. I try to run it down mid because my team's grouping to help them. Looks like it wasn't really going to work out well. Peel back my Draven. Okay. So, just go straight back into the side lane. Shove out the side lane. I know there's no more objectives for me to get anymore. So, I shove out the side. Shove, 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 shove. They look to overextend a little bit, so now I'm trying to find that balance between catching sideways and grouping with my team. So I kind of come in from the side here. And I love this. Why is this good? Well, we all know if they're all coming from this direction, they're all funneling in from one direction. So I like this. As long as the enemies are coming in from one angle, it's good for me because my ultimate obviously is like a funnel as well. And I can peel myself very effectively with these items. So I remember thinking here, even though it's like a 1v3 scenario, I'm okay to take this fight. So as you can see, I'm peeling back quite effectively. I remember I fat finger my flash here, but the premise is right. I'm always trying to usher them into one direction. Boom. And then end up like playing a nice little fight with my team to get a nice little double kill. And that's the sort of thing you got to be willing to do as Casio. You can't just be a bitch and then be like, am I going to lose it? No, like you got to utilize a tool in your kit to outplay people. As long as they're coming from one direction and you're not getting flanked, you're all good. Casio can do whatever, you can do this sort of thing all the time. This is very replicable. Here I fat fingered my flash. I didn't need to flash, but end up netting me a kill anyway, so it's fine. So working towards my gargoyles, same thing. Look what I do. Straight into the side lane. Shove, 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 shove. Sweep down with my sweeper. Try to look for a blue buff. And if they collapse onto me, I'll kind of back up a little bit. But notice I'm always thinking about what direction they're going to come from. Because if they run into me like this is what Casio wants. I can block the choke points with my W. I can peel back with my R anyway. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to look for picks. I want them to come to me, and I'm trying to get farm. I'm balancing those three things. One, letting them come to me. Two, trying to get creative picks using Fog of War. And three, be a vacuum and farm up a storm. It's the same three things. Actually, the fourth one I would say is for group when necessary. And notice how it's very dynamic. It's like a living organism. Mid-game macro is like a living organism. You can't just view it in a very like regimented way. So now I know that they were likely going to come in over here to get vision. So look what I do. I sit in a position where I think they're going to be. I'm always trying to think a step ahead. Boom. And I get a nice little pick. Excellent. And these were the picks that really allowed us to kind of stall out this game. Excellent. Excellent. Now we're playing the front to back. Nice little 2 picks. Aurelia's in the side lane. Shove, shove, shove. End up working towards the Baron here. I think we end up turning. And notice how here I use my W proactively because I know Akshan has the heroic swing and I know that I can't hold on to it. So I end up starting the fight with W this time. Again, tying back to the QW fundamentals. Boom. And at this point, I'm getting way too out of control. And because I farm pretty well as well, this game is turned around on its head. It's 19 kills to 15. We decide not to do it. And I know that I have less damage, so I call it off. A lot of people will think that Casio is that Baron Shred type champion. Casio isn't with this setup. That's one of the downsides of it. Now, I ping Dragon and tell our team we can fight. I've got my Gargoyles working towards my Shadow Flame as my third item. Sorry, this was when Archangels was actually really expensive, so I didn't go Archangels here. Now, this was my big throw in this game. I get to the objective a little too early, a little too away from my team. Now, notice what's the problem here. Straight away. My R's useless because they're coming in from multiple directions. If Set was coming in this way, it probably would have been okay because I can just funnel them in and peel back with my Gargoyles and my ultimate. But they're not. They're coming in from multiple directions. I don't know where to throw my ultimate here. So this is the worst possible position to be in as a Casio. And I don't have flash, so I can't beat them to the punch, right? My intention, though, was to get here to the objective early, set up, and then kind of control the choke point with my W, with my ultimate, pull the dragon out, and play that front to back team fight because I'm so goddamn strong at the moment. That was my intention anyway, but I got here a little too early. I couldn't peel back with my ultimate that effectively. I tried to peel, but I ended up just dying and baiting in my team a little bit here. So that was my bad. I'm giving a big shutdown, and this is what ends up elongating this game. But I wasn't too mad about that because I actively had intention. Like, I had intention for doing what I did there. I wanted to get to the objective early, so they were forced to run into me. I didn't want to get to the objective late. Okay, so moving in, again, same thing, default response. I'm not running it down mid. I'm going straight to the side lane, looking to sweep, camp brushes. Look at this. Shoving, taking jungle camps, sweeping. Now, because the wave's too deep, I'm grouping in between the waves while Lucian's reacting, looking for another pick here. Braum's getting caught out again. Excellent. Now, rather than just mindlessly grouping, they're chasing the Aurelia, so we start the Baron. That's fine. Pretty straightforward. We end up getting the Baron. They get here too late because they wasted time picking the Aurelia. And I love these fights, front to back. If they want to chase us, they can chase us, but I'm room here, so I try to ping back, and we just disengage. Okay, same thing. I know that they're probably going to get deep vision in our jungle, so look what I do. I camp in a brush. It's the same thing, guys. Now, I can't teach you how to think like that. That's going to come with time. It is going to come with time. All right, so moving on a little bit. Shove out the sideways. What's my thought process going to be? You can already see I'm going to try and farm jungle camps, and I'm going to try and get myself in a position to try and look for a pick. Get my Shadow Flame. Look what I do. Camping a brush. I know that they're probably going to walk into our bot side jungle because they have, I think, they knew that one of our champions was dead. So I thought they were going to walk in to potentially take our blue. So I'm trying to camp in a good position here. Look at this. But this time it was warded, but I was able to get a nice little pick regardless. Always thinking about where they're going to be. Beautiful. Get the blue buff. Again, look at this. Even camping in a side lane brush here. I know that Lucian might potentially walk up. He chooses not to though. But it was worth a shot. Okay, so here is an example of me. I think I go for a flash ult here, but it doesn't end up working. This is a perfect example of me where I should have went for R flash, not Flash W. I thought Flash W would have been, I don't know what I was thinking. If I had Everfrost, I think Flash W could work, but he reacted really nicely. So I think in hindsight, if I were to do this again, I would have R-flashed, because that would have caught him off guard. But Flash W like that does not work. It's not enough CC. And that's a big blunder. That's my Flash gone. Alright, so Elder Dragon's coming up. Look what I'm doing. Getting to the objective early, wanting them to come to us. Beautiful. Get the Elder. Look what I'm going to do. This time I'm actually grouping though, because Baron's about to come up and we have Elder, and I know that if we can seal a Baron, the game's just going to be over. So I end up grouping up with my team, camping a brush, same thing, rinse, repeat. Braum's an idiot, keeps face checking. Now here, I remember that we had no way of preventing the Evelyn from getting around the pit, and this is again a perfect example of why this build is so effective. Old Casio wouldn't have been able to randomly walk into the jungle and face check and prevent them from walking through. But now I'm fearless. Look at this, I have Exhaust, I have my Gargoyles, they can't jump onto me. So I'm able to end up protecting the Baron here just by chatting them out. I never would have been able to do that in the past. But moving forward, it's the same thing. Rinse, repeat. Want to keep it relatively simple here. Taking jungle camps, camping brushes. I think I end up trying to camp brushes again. Thinking about where they're going to be. Leading into a pretty stock standard front to back team fight. Look, these front to back team fights, look, as you can see, I mean, they're okay. They're okay. I think my premise here was that if I'm getting split, ties back to the beat them to the punch mantra, I'm going to flash on one side, because if they're split, I want to bring the fight to one side. Then it's instantly like kind of like a 3v5 rather than a 5v5. So I'm trying to split the fight. So I just R flash forward. I think I don't know, flash R. And then we just win the fight here. Relatively straightforward. So look, I don't want to go too in depth on the mid game. We're going to do another few full game reviews later on in this one. But as you can see, the same fundamentals apply. So in your own reviews, guys, what I would urge you to do is try and balance those things. If your team gets engaged on and you're not there, did you either have to be there because otherwise you're just going to lose the game, or could you genuinely carry this game? Was there a way that you could have shoved and got yourself into a creative position with Sweeper to look for a pick? Could you have farmed more efficiently by taking jungle camps? Could you have gone into objectives early to set up? Were you making sure that you weren't getting flanked and protecting yourself at all times and making sure they were coming in from one direction? All the same fundamentals, guys. As long as you're thinking like that, you will incrementally improve. And look, if you want a little bit more help on mid-game stuff, I would urge you, look into the Mid Lane Academy. I can kind of help you a bit more in depth there. Because I think there's sometimes when it comes to mid-game, people have some invisible narratives or don't really understand a few concepts. We'll get to that another time, all right, guys? So hopefully this gives you a good baseline for your mid-game, something to think about or a way to think about your mid-game. All right, so moving on to the top 5 tips for learning Cassiopeia. If you're new to Casio, these are a few tips that might help you with the learning process. Number 1, you must develop a feel for the champion's outputs. Don't default to the conservative farm style of playing Cassiopeia. I would urge you to limit test with the trading advice I've given so far in this guide. Go for those early all-ins. Feel out what the potential of your champion is. If you default to this conservative farm style, you're not going to get that far. You're just going to get outranged. You're slowly going to get poked out. And you're not really going to know what the champion is capable of. So please don't be afraid to limit test. Be willing to make sacrifices from a team perspective to put yourself in a good position. If you are good at Cassiopeia, you will be able to carry them on the back end most of the time. Yes, there are exceptions to this when you do get outranged and maybe you do have to help someone else on the team, but 90% of the time, it's okay to make sacrifices, just like I did in those 2 mid-game reviews there where I wasn't grouping. Sometimes I was actively shoving out the side, looking for solo picks by myself, getting a lot of side lane farm, taking jungle camps. Don't get complacent with your farm. If you are getting below 8.5 CS per minute, you are going to be in trouble as a Cassiopeia player. You're just not going to get to those item spikes. If you are struggling with the mechanical aspect of the game, I would strongly suggest spending time on loldogesgame.com. I'm going to be doing a video soon on my YouTube talking about this. Very, very useful little tool that can help people if you're struggling with the mechanical aspect. And last one here, find your style. Don't copy me. Don't copy any other one trick blindly. Find what feels best for you. If you prefer that slower style and it's working for you, thumbs up. If you prefer the faster style than me, you go C-Pod or something like that, thumbs up. Try what works for you. Cassiopeia is a very beautiful champion with many different interpretations. So don't tunnel yourself in to a given style. Now, this was another question we got in the a lot in the community Q&A. When to pick Casio in draft? So I've got a love and hate column here. I'll start with the love. Casio loves versing low threat, low damage compositions because you can just mow them down. They're going to be you can peel very easily. You're going to win those front-to-back team fights, win those extended fights very easily with Conqueror. You're going to just shred through these low threat comps. She also loves versing linear gap closers, champions like Graves, Renekton, Xin Zhao, very linear champions, because again, they're going to funnel into your ultimate, they're going to have to walk over your W, they're going to have to walk into your Everfrost, very, very straightforward. Casio loves being inside of multi-threat compositions. It's a luxury, not essential. Like, for example, if I have like a Camille on my team or a Kha'Zix and things like that, I actually kind of like it because it feels like they're not just going to all target me. They have to think about these other threats, which allows me to kind of have a lot more freedom in the way I play out my mid game. I'm not just tunneled into grouping and sitting behind my front line. I just have a lot more flexibility. And because I have already so much peel within my kit and my itemization now with the defensive items and things like that, I don't feel the need to have like a Scion on my team that's just going to sit in front of me. I don't need that. I would rather have multi-threat. I like having Engage on my team because I'm so low range and I have such limited Engage. Having Engage on my team makes my life much easier. If I'm with, again, like a Camille, if I'm with like a Nautilus, Leona, things like that, I love it. It makes my life much easier. And additional peel, Thresh, Nautilus, Leona, people that can create space is quite nice. Hates. Casio is countered by range and non-committal compositions. Champions like Orianna, Victor, Ezreal, Seraphine, Caitlyn. Compositions that can peel back. Jace. Champions that can like peel back, keep you out of range, and make it very hard for you to walk into them. These champions and comps are a pain in the ass. We're going to go over a VOD in a minute where I'm versing, I just get counted from draft. And even though I get really fed, I can't do anything with my damage. And even if I'm durable, I can't close the gap. It's ridiculous. Versing multi-threat dive can be a pain in the ass. This one, not as much anymore because of the itemization. We have Crown, we have Gargoyles and things like that. But it still is very annoying. If you have a flanker that is constantly getting onto you, it's going to make it hard for them to funnel into one direction with your ultimate, so that it can be very annoying. And I think Predator junglers in general, like Predator Elise, Predator Hecarim, Predator junglers are an absolute pain in the ass because they kind of just walk over your stuff. They like walk over your W. And it's very hard to land Qs. So I found these champions very annoying in a way. Now, matchup tier list. As per usual, tier lists are a bit of hogwash, in the sense that they're hard to do because they don't take into account jungle matchups. And I feel as though they don't give you the full picture. I tried my best to give you what I believe is a pretty accurate Cassiopeia tier list, matchup tier list. Again, people are going to have differing interpretations, and this will change a lot because we're in preseason right now when, new items, champions are getting buffed, nerfed, things like that. So this will change. So this is just as it is right now. Again, my interpretation. A few little things I will highlight. As you can see down the bottom, a good Orianna is going to dominate you. Outranges you, can keep you out of tether. It just gets, even if you get ahead, it's going to be miserable. Probably Cassio's hardest matchup. And as you can see, all of these champions, a lot of like high range champions here that could kind of keep you out of tether. But I'd say these ones, these unfavorable ones, you can definitely play versus them. You've got to be just very good mechanically to kind of outplay them. These are like skill matchups, 50-50s, 60-40s, so on and so forth. And we have the nice easy ones at the top. So if you have any questions, hit me up. At the end of the day, this is all through the lens of an aggressive style of Casio. Keep in mind, not a slow style of Casio. So, really keep that in mind. Skin tier list, I have no comment. Desperado Cassiopeia is the best. It's my baby. I've used this skin for years upon years upon years. I love it. So I don't care about any other skin because I'm going to be using this one to the day I die when I'm a 40-year-old challenger player. So anyway, game reviews. We're going to go over 3 different games here. Probably going to go over the first maybe 7 to 10 minutes of an Orianna VOD. Then a game where I just completely annihilate out micro as Syndra. And then a game where I get ahead but I can't translate leads because the enemy comp was so it was so hard for me to verse. I think I was versing like a Caitlyn or something like that. Like, it was a classic counter Cassiopeia comp. So let's dive straight in. All right, so we're going to kick it off with the Casio versus Ori matchup. A very, very hard matchup. I felt as though I did a pretty good job in the early game of getting some creative picks, playing in accordance to my identity, closing the gap, and looking for and getting a pretty creative solo kill around level 6, level 7. So we're going to take a look at the first 6-7 minutes, and then we'll go from there. So I went for the Ignite, like I outlined in my guide thus far. Let's take a look. So what I'm trying to do, ideally, is kind of keep neutral state or slightly shoving so I can get that level 2 first. And look, I didn't play this perfect, so I'm actually going to criticize myself here. My goal was to kind of alternate my positioning in the lane, left to right, so I can kind of avoid that ball. And kind of go for fake autos every now and then, that sort of thing, to bait out the Q, keeping my distance from that Q as much as possible. I'm actually not happy with how fast I shoved. I think I should have played maybe a little bit slower. I took a pretty nasty trade there on that Q. And this Ori was actually pretty good. He felt pretty competent mechanically. Trying to fish aggressively for a short little trade with my QE, but I got tethered quite nicely. So as you can see, it really is just a mechanics max type matchup. It's very mechanically demanding. If I can avoid damage, I'm going to be okay. If I get hit, I'm going to be screwed. So notice how I'm kind of walking up, walking back. I'm trying to bait out Qs and utilize my Q movement speed to avoid abilities. Look at that, max range Q, utilize the movement speed to potentially close the gap, thin the wave, make sure I'm not getting waves slow built into me, keeping the wave in neutral state. Bit of a wasted Q there. Now I realize that the wave's getting too big, so I'm thinking, screw it, I'm going to shove it, I'm going to crash it, and reset the wave. That was my thought process here. This Ori actually does a really good job of holding the wave. That's actually beautiful wave management for the Ori. I got punished for that. So what I should have done in hindsight, I thought that the wave was too big to hold. I should have walked it in. And that actually this is what you want to avoid at all costs. You want to make sure that wave is either bouncing and coming back out or staying somewhat neutral. This is worst case scenario. As Casio and Ori. Now she can kind of zone me, poke me for walking up and CSing. I don't have any kill threat anymore. It's really, really hard. So this is really what you want to avoid, especially when you're playing this Ignite style. So I'm trying to desperately get the wave out. I'm even willing to take damage for it. Trying to bait out Qs, but this Ori's Q accuracy is quite nice. Now I see Lee Sin walking into top river. I'm able to move into river first because I have a little bit of prio. And now again, I want the enemy to come to me. So I remember thinking here, either one or two things is going to happen. Viego's going to three things. Viego's going to walk in, we can easily take the 2v2. Or Ori's going to walk around and face check here, in which I can chunk it out, maybe even kill the Ori. Or Viego's just going to give, and Lee Sin's just going to get like a double scuttle, even though it's not really that important. So I remember just hovering here, camping out of vision, just to make up my mind. Constantly looking at the minimap to see if Ori's going to move or whatever. Setting out of vision. Obviously Viego's coming into me here, in a way, or Ori. Fight happens, no hesitation, W, E, Ignite comes in clutch, and I'm able to get a nice little double kill here. And this is exactly what I'm looking for in these sorts of situations. Now, just because I get this kill doesn't mean it's, you know, over for Ori, because Ori is very good into Casio. She ends up holding the wave again, doing a really good job. I'm forced to reset because I had pretty low resources and I couldn't actually got the wave in by myself. So I go for a reset. Wave gets frozen on a little bit. I do make the sacrifice of farm, and that's inevitable when you're going to play Ignite Casio. You're not going to get perfect resets all the time. But now I come back. Now priority number one is fix the wave. Get some good vision on bot side so I can posture aggressively. Get the wave in or let it bounce out, one or the other. So Ori ends up shoving it out for me. And I know this is going to be my window. I'm nearing level 6. I know that this Ori is relatively squishy. She doesn't have enough, you know, AP to really harass me hardcore with Lost Chapter or anything like that. So I'm feeling good. I think this is a mistake, what I'm doing here. I shouldn't be thinning it as much. I should be letting it come out probably a little bit more. But my goal is to make sure she isn't able to slow build. And I'm always thinking about this wave, trying to allow the wave. I want the wave to be here, ideally, because I want to go for that all-in at level 6. So I'm thinning it, lovely, letting it come out a little bit. So So notice how it was either neutral state in the early game or, maybe slightly shoving just so I can, get to those fights first and potentially take heavy trades. Now, post 6, I'm altering my game plan a little bit. Neutral state / slightly onto me. And now I've got the wave in a great spot. Kind of walk up, try to take a nice little short trade there. I didn't really feel confident in chasing because I actually didn't see Viega here in game. I thought Viega was hovering the Ori. If I knew Viega wasn't, I would have chased, obviously, but I just didn't know that. And now here, I know I'm 1 minion off 6. Wave's in a great spot for me. Trying to keep the wave on my side again. Look at this, beautiful wave management. This is much easier for me. And now it's just a matter of time. I'm trying to time my ultimate with an auto attack here. Boom. And that's how I get out of the lane. And now I'm just out of control at this point. And now you have two choices. I can continue to do like the same type of thing, kind of hold wave, set up ganks. If you feel as though you're going to be left on an island or you don't have any kill threat because you have no flash, then a lot of the time I'm either going to keep neutral state, continue to farm and scale into mid game, or I'm going to just shove the wave because I have enough AP to just shove the wave and play co-op versus AI in a way. That's generally what I'll do. So notice how it's very mechanically intensive. I'd say it's a mechanically intensive matchup. And you really got to focus on alternating your dodging patterns. And notice how the wave management, you want the wave in the middle or slightly on your side post 6. Very dynamic in a way, okay? So what we'll do, we'll go on to another matchup, a little bit of a harder game. This one was kind of made quite easy for my early double kill, so we'll give you a bit of a more realistic review. All right, so this is a Casio v Syndra. We have a Syndra Kiana versus Casio Talon. The Syndra went phase rush, which I was pretty happy with, pretty low threat. So let's see what we do here. Same setup, very similar every game. Trying to bait out that Syndra Q. I think I get nailed by a few Syndra Qs here in the early game. I think I walk into that one, which is not good micro for me. Again, as you can see, I'm trying to thin the wave to make sure Syndra doesn't get the minion advantage. I'm trying to get the minion advantage so I get the level 2 first. That's generally my go-to strategy in a lot of these matchups. Notice how I'm alternating my dodging patterns. Sometimes I'm walking forward, sometimes I'm working backwards. Boom. I had to go for a nice E auto there on the back end. Getting hit by way too many Qs here though. And as you can see, I mean, playing this style, it's very feast or famine. If I get hit by too many skill shots, it's end of review, Walking up nice and aggressively, trying to look for something at level 2 here. End up getting nailed by the QE. I didn't think that QE was going to hit me, honestly. I thought that I wasn't going to get stunned there. So it kind of got caught off guard. And I took a lot of damage. This is why I like this VOD, because I start off on the back foot. Casio, this Syndra went C-Pod as well, so she has plenty of resources. I get hit by quite a few Qs, and I find a way back in. Get a nice little water, 2 minutes 30. Trying to keep the wave in neutral state. Burnt through both of my pots already. Notice I'm still trying to get up in his face. I'm not playing super defensive. I'm in line with the minions. I mean, she's the one that's on the defense. And notice how sometimes I'm walking up and I'm like faking my Q. I'm not just rushing my Q. I mean, I could theoretically use my Q a lot this lane. But notice how I'm always walking on that tether back and forth, trying to fish for that Q. I'm overwhelming her mental stack. Now I'm able to avoid that. Now Kiana comes in. To be honest with you, I didn't expect a 3-camp bot side gank. I thought that Kiana would have rushed blue to red type thing, like a bot to top. That's why I wanted top side. But good gank from the Kiana. That's a gank that I die to quite often. But it is what it is. Nice gank from the Kiana. So I come back, have a pretty bad reset, and the wave wasn't even a good spot for me. So yeah, off to a rough start. Okay, so now I know 100% Kiana's topside. And look, I don't have flash, but I know I have ignite. Try to go for a nice little trade. What I should have done is just gone for a short trade, knowing that Syndra has E, but I baited out the E, which is great. Now I'm trying to go for an all-in. Get the flash. Now, one more E would have killed. I was very close there. I think I probably would have had the same effect if I just took the nice little short trade there, and then she would have probably flashed anyway and not used ignite. So a little bit of maybe a potential blunder there. So as you can see, not off to the best start here. A lot of Cassios in this situation would be sweating. You got ganked early, failed your early solo kill with the ignite. Syndra has TP, she can just TP back. So end up getting the wave out, going for a nice little reset, straight into Dark Seal. I get denied a little bit more farm. So not the best start here. So I remember thinking here that Syndra went for another reset, which makes sense. So notice how I'm not mindlessly shoving because I don't want the wave on Syndra's side. I just want the wave in neutral side. I'm happy with this. So I see Ali hovering me at the moment. I'm just kind of chilling. Just chilling. Now, it's kind of hard for me to make a lot of proactive plays when I don't have my flash and I don't have my ult and I don't have my ignite. So I recognize that I'm in a little bit of a lull state. But, again, I'm going to maintain very present, very adaptable. If she missteps, I will trade onto her. Now I'm just being very conservative, keeping the wave in a somewhat neutral position. She ends up shoving me in right now. I had to be quite respectful during that time with the alley there, so that was a bit annoying. Now she tries to go for my pink. I bait out her E. Okay. Baiting out Qs as much as possible. Putting the pressure onto her. Not playing like a bitch here. Willing to trade damage. Keeping at that max range. Time mid flash. Ping on my way, but Talon chooses not to gank. That's okay. Put my pink down again. End up avoiding the E. Very nice. Boom. And this is all it takes. One little pick here. One little pick is all it takes as a Cassiopeia. Ali compensates. Boom. Nice little double kill. Now, this is the thing. A lot of these Syndras, they're not going to... Like, a lot of players, they don't anticipate that you're going to play this aggressively. They think that you're just going to kind of be very defensive like a lot of the other Casio players. I utilize the movement speed there to avoid the skill shot. And instead of walking back here, I know that they don't have vision because it's pinked. Boom. Able to get a nice little ultimate. And we're able to turn it around. And this is all you need as Casio. And what I've noticed in a lot of my games is that it's not really me making a massive play. It's more me capitalizing on the mispositioning of someone else. Whether I lull them into a sense of safety or out micro them really, or I put myself in an awkward scenario. I'm always being creative and adaptable based off like what I see in the moment. And this is the thing, like, again, you're not gonna, if you're always ready and permanently poised and ready to go, you are gonna find a lot of these windows. Okay, so now I've got my Lost Chapter and my flash is coming back up. And this is where it's go time for me. I mean, I can just do whatever I want now because I have so much kill threat. So, I think I end up holding the wave on my side right now because Blitzcrank has move. So I temporarily hold the wave on my side. Very similar to that Origam, isn't it? I'm post 6, I got my ultimate, got my flash, I hold the wave on my side here. I mean, there's no point me mindlessly shoving. I'm only going to shove if I'm planning on not interacting with the Syndra here. Boom, waves on my side. Obviously, I have a lot of gank setup and a lot of gank follow-up. I was thinking of actually, yeah, and I end up flash Wing, forcing her to flash. She does a really good reactive flash, but because of the slow, Blitzcrank's able to close the gap, and I get a nice little kill. Now it's getting out of control. Shove, stay for plates. Okay, this is very, very nice. Again, another adaptable play. So a lot of people would have thought I would reset here because I've stayed for a long time, end up creating for plates, getting a few waves, and I see Talon going for an invade on the red because our Blitzcrank is here as well. So instead of instantly basing, I kind of be, all right, I'm happy to take this. I'm a skirmisher. So I know Syndra, look at this. I know Syndra is going to walk around here into the jungle to back up her jungler. So what do? Thinking about where they're going to be. She's obviously looking somewhere else. Nice little kill. Big brain moment. Just like that. And now I've gone from, 2-0 or whatever, 2-1 to 5-1. Same thing with Ali. I knew Ali was going to have to walk back. So, again, stuff's not really that complex. All it is taking the time to think about where they're going to be. Not just defaulting into doing the stock standard response that every other control mage player would do. Beautiful. Straight into Everfrost. Time some flashes. And now I'm getting absolutely out of control. I'm 5-1. I think Blitzcrank just keeps roaming mid like this. What happens here? Fast forwarding a little bit. Camping out of vision again. What happens here? She just goes in my face like that. Pretty easy. Pretty straightforward. That's why I love the Everfrost, the ultimate, the chain CC potential. Get a few plates, getting out of control, backing up my jungler, taking jungle camps, controlling that river. playing with my Blitzcrank for chain CC here. And I'm not afraid to play aggressive like this because I'm so tanky. Even just with Everfrost and my conditioning and overgrowth. Beautiful. Auto, keep up my Conqueror stacks. And now this game is pretty over. So pretty straightforward, mate, and 1, and this game's done. So what we'll do, hopefully you can kind of see where I'm getting at. It's the same things. It's the same fundamentals. Being adaptable. You know, mechanics max, or really optimizing your micro. Willing to take damage to close the gap. Being creative with your positioning. Not kind of bitching it when it comes to 2v2s and creative picks. Standing out of vision. Being where they least expect. Same things over and over again. You're going to have to find a way creatively to get out of these hard matchups. All right, now we have a game where I get countered really hard across the board. This is a Cassio's worst nightmare. Jace, pain in the ass. Victor, pain in the ass. Caitlyn Jana, even more of a pain in the ass. This is not good. Not good for a Casio player. So I remember this game I got ahead, but I just couldn't do anything. And look, I think I probably could have won this game if I played absolutely flawlessly, but I think I made 1 or 2 mistakes and it cost me the game. So I want to run through this game. Bit of a tricky one. Obviously a bit of a hard matchup. All right, let's dive straight in. Same premise. I'm trying to keep the wave in a neutral state or slightly shoving just to make sure I can get that level 2 first. That's what I tend to try and do. Now this Victor, I mean, I feel like this Victor was very... I mean, look, and to be completely frank, I played a lot of these games in like high diamond, like master on my second account because Q times are too high on my main. And like, there's such a big difference between like master and like, and challenger in terms of like the aggression. So look, I think for most of you watching this guide, you're going to also see the same things. But, you know, I shouldn't be able to... I mean, this guy should not be playing this defensive. Like, he should be willing to trade Q auto with my E. So I get the level 2 first. I'm able to take a very nice level 2 trade. And that's more like it. That's usually or the type of trade I would like to take. Lovely. So pretty straightforward. Same strategy. Rinse, repeat. Play for the shove. Utilize my auto attacks. Get a level 2 first. Look for a nice level 2 trade. Now here, I want to let the wave come out. I don't want the wave to be stuck outside Victor's tower. I want the wave to come back out into somewhat of a neutral state. I don't want to just keep shoving. Okay. Pretty straightforward here. Waves bouncing out a little bit. Trying to thin it just to make sure it doesn't get too big. I don't want to allow Victor to slow build into me. I kind of want it to chill nice and safely in the middle. Victor starts to land a few E's onto me here. And I'm happy with this lane pace, honestly. If Victor's not going to poke me and harass me, I'm happy. I'm very happy with this. We have plenty of vision on that top side. Lee Sin's on the scuttle. Looks like Lee's looking for a bit of a cross map. I wasn't too certain about this one. He was looking for a bit of a gank. I just didn't see the angle because this Victor was kind of posturing on the other side of the minion. So I felt as though Victor already knew Lee was there. So I tried to go for a play, but it just didn't work out. Took a nice little trade though on the back end. Okay, so Wave's in a great spot. Pretty slow early lane. Usually, I would say this is a lot slower than my usual lanes. Maybe this Victor is playing very conservative. So notice here I'm trying to close that gap with the E, and I'm able to get a nice little kill here. So notice how what you'll see a lot of the time is that they're just going to really disrespect your early damage with Ignite. So as soon as I land that, I'm not hesitating. I'm not backstepping at all. Look at my clicks. It's always forward, 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 flash, 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 forward. It's like, it's a very, yeah, it catches a lot of people off guard. So anyway, I made a big mistake here. What I should have done in hindsight is insta-reset, because Wave was actually in a somewhat decent position. I should insta-reset knowing that I don't have TP, and he obviously has TP, and he's coming up in 9 seconds right now. So in hindsight, I should have done that. In the game, I remember I was thinking here I could have gotten the wave out and I could have stayed a bit longer because I had a pot ticking, but I misjudged my resources, and I kind of get screwed pretty bad for this because I try to stay. It doesn't end up working well, and I get screwed. So if you are going to take Ignite, this is something that you're going to have to play around with, especially if you're used to playing with TP, like myself. I don't usually take Ignite on many champs at all. So yeah, this is part of the learning curve of Cassiopeia. So this was a pretty bad play from me. So anyway, I reset, I accept reality that my wave is screwed. Bot lane kind of trades back and forth. Top lane loses a bunch of farm. I get the wave out immediately to get it back into neutral state and get a nice little ward out on that top side so I can heavy lean. Especially now that I don't have flash. So again, I'm in a bit of a lull state. I don't have flash, I don't have ignite, I don't have ultimate. There's not really too much I can do, especially since Victor actually conserved his flash also. Trying to keep my range and make it quite difficult for the Victor actually to land easier. If he uses E and misses it, I'm going to trade him on the back end like that. This is also a lane where going Doran's and Darksteel is probably completely fine. And here I realized that the wave was actually slow building into the Victor, so I decided to just hard shove it in and help my team instead. Because I saw Lee Sin posturing topside. Oh, I remember thinking, no, this is why. I saw Camille had a wave building out, and I know Jace didn't have flash, and I know Camille had R. And when I put those things together, this is not really a Casio thing. I would have done this on any champion. It's like I see very immobile top lane, a lot of damage, my jungle's on the side of the map. It's just a free kill in general. So, you know, this is the thing. You know, just because I want to play for my lane, if I see a kill top, I'm going to go for a kill. So, able to go for a nice little roam into a lost chapter. Okay. And, you know, that's just, yeah, a game fundamental rather than a Casio fundamental. So I come back. Wave starts to be slow building out a little bit here. Shove it in because I don't want to be slow building and harassing under tower. I just want to be shoving, bring it back to neutral state or just shove and move. Now, I know that top also still doesn't have flash. Camille didn't even end up having to use ult on that last play. And since the wave is bouncing back out, I can go for another creative roam. So these are just creative roams that I do sometimes as Casio when I know that there's a lot of kill set up. Again, more of a game fundamental. I like to keep my options very open. As you can see so far in a lot of my lanes, I'm very versatile. I'm very adaptable. I'm not tunneling myself into one way of playing the game. Keeping my options open. Both in lane and out of lane. So I come back. I see Lee Sin go for a bit of an invade. So I start to shove. And I want to complement him in the 2v2. End up using my W. I think I maybe should have R'd here. I just didn't think Viego would go in blind when he knew that I was here. So this was my bad. If I can start the fight with R when they're facing me, I should. What I could have also done is walk up further rather than max range W. Because see how that... One of the W fundamentals I spoke about in this guide was you want the W slightly behind them rather than in front of them. If I actually walked up a little bit further or Q'd first got the movement speed, I would have killed Viego here. Those small differences in ability usage, you might think of them, yeah, Curtis, you know, screw you and your stupid little small details. No, they bloody matter. And I learned this the hard way. Like when I used to play Casio, like I would just lose skirmishes. And it was always small things. You got to really embrace these small details. And that's what I learned from that Korean Casio player. Like, the W usage was the difference. Like, and I would always put myself in his shoes. Like, if I would have played this skirmish, how would I have played it? I would have just rushed my W. But that's the difference. He gets a kill and I don't. That changes the game. So, here, yeah, I would have got that kill. Just very small details. But anyway, I'm really fed here, so obviously I'm able to kind of win out this skirmish with my team. Excellent. Get a nice little deep ward. Take some nice heavy trades with the Victor. Got a red buff, so I'm completely fine to do so. Getting close to my mythic as well. And again, classic fundamental, isn't it? Flash W behind the Victor, so he has nowhere to go. Excellent. Pretty straightforward. And into a lot of these higher range matchups, I'm not afraid to use my flash aggressively because I know once I get a lead and I get an XP lead, like I'm okay. Like I've survived. But if I don't get these early solo kills, it is going to get very difficult for me. So I'm willing to play hyper aggressive. I mean, it's my only way out because I'm so low range. Remember tying back to that Mike Tyson analogy. Okay, so now I've got my Everfrost. Swap to Sweeper. My bot lane's really struggling in the 2v2. Top lane's doing quite well. Take Raptors on the way through. End up sweeping on the way through as well. Trying to set up a gank onto this Victor. Try to usher him into my Lee Sin. And this was massive. Chain CC. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Fast forward, Lee Sin gets the rift. I get a plate. I call for a dive mid, but he doesn't end up coming for it. Now, this is where I think the game implodes. So, I'm in a good spot. I mean, I'm dominating the Victor. We have a beautiful win con through top side. My bot lane is losing. So this is what I would call a classic split map scenario. One winning side, one losing side. Dragon was coming up, and I just thought that they're low, and I swept, and there was no wards here. I see half HP Caitlyn, half HP this. I've got Everfrost. I have ultimate. It just looked like a play, and what actually happened before, Viego ganked bot, and I saw Viego move into here, and I thought he was running back up into his jungle. I didn't think Viego would loop back like that. So Viego, with his pathing, I thought he was going over here. So I thought, oh, because I swept and there's no wards here, I can actually go for a creative gank and actually get a double kill. But what happens is that Viego actually doesn't do that path, and I end up face checking the Viego. I didn't even realize Viego was in front of my face. And then, because I panic Q, when I never would have done this, I would have Everfrosted immediately and then into W and then into Q, and he can't kill me. But then I take way too much damage. I panic everything. I basically get one shot by the Viego and then end up dying and giving a big shutdown to the Caitlyn. And this Caitlyn kill, the shutdown, I think ended up losing us the game, funnily enough. And Camille ended up compensating and giving another shutdown to the Caitlyn. So Caitlyn got 800 gold total there. So look, at the end of the day, I don't really regret my decision. I just think I kind of got like bamboozled a little bit. Alright, so this is where the game starts to get a bit tricky. Caitlyn starts to get quite fed. Again, as you can see, I'm doing creative pathing to loop around my opponent to get nice little picks. Starting to shove out the side lane a little bit, swap back with the Camille. This poor Victor's getting shit on. I end up trying to get mid tower. Lee Sin throws a little bit, but that's okay. Look, so we're going to a bit of a lull state at the moment. What happens here? So Victor comes by. End up getting stunned. I can't remember this. I think I just run away. So they end up collapsing onto us, getting a few kills. And I remember all I wanted to do right now was to swap with the Ezreal, get Ezreal into mid, and me go side. Because once I'm in the side, I'm going to be all good. Now, here, this is a classic example of where I'm getting outranged by an opponent. I can't get onto this guy. There's no way that I'm going to out-tether the Caitlyn. So what happens, you'll see actually with my movement, I keep at the max range of Caitlyn's autos, and then I kind of, I guess, lull her into a sense of security, then I R-flash. So take a look at this. Keep my max range, tethering her autos, walk back and forth, walk back and forth, walk back and forth, boom. So like generally that's what I will try to do when I get outranged. I try to lull them into a sense of safety, then I'll kind of, R-flash. So that was great. Get a bit of gold back, get a bit of revenge. But now I'm happy. I'm thinking, all right, great, I'm in the side lane. I'm working towards my Cosmic Drive, working towards my Gargoyles. In hindsight, I probably... my itemization probably wasn't perfect this game. Get Krogs on the way through. Know that I have to cover mid temporarily. And this is where I start to struggle. I mean, I have no flash. I can't get on top of this Caitlyn. I'm finding it very difficult. I'm kind of getting knocked up by Janna Qs and shit like this. It's just finding it very difficult. So is Lee Sin by the looks of things. But I think I remember here she mistethers at one point and ended up killing her, but that's not the point. Alright, so regardless, what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to find a balance between grouping with my team, being there for fights, and catching side lane farm. So I end up like kind of tethering her in a little bit there. She oversteps and dies. Go straight back to the side lane. Shove, shove, shove. Shove, shove, shove. My team gets caught. Nothing I can do. Shove, shove, shove. I remember here thinking, okay, they're going to go to the drag. We probably can't contest. I might as well just kind of camp here just in case they move straight from dragon into that bot wave. Notice I'm always thinking about, again, looking for picks. So I'm trying to pick my moments here. I don't want to mindlessly front to back versus the Caitlyn, Janna, Jace. But I also don't want to not group at all. So I'm trying to feel like, okay, when do I actually really need a group? How can I fight like creatively? But ideally, how can I make some picks? Again, trying to make picks, get spotted out by a blue trinket. Side laning. So this is where the game, yeah, it's getting awkward. It's getting very awkward. I peel back. I know they can't kill me with Everfrost. I have too much self-peel. Trying to maximize my farm in the side lane without dying. I tell Camille to swap because I want to be topside because Baron's going to be the next objective. And now they end up fighting. So again, trying to come in, trying to peel my team here a little bit. So notice how my default response, I won't ignore the divers a lot of the time. And the reason I won't ignore the divers, like I have a lot of choices here. We've got a TP here, we've got a Janna here, we have a Viego over here. If I go here or here, notice how my options are very limited with my R usage. But if I go here, I know that they're all going to be, they can only ever come in from like this direction. So again, I'm always trying to kind of usher myself into a position where they're going to be coming from one direction. So I instantly peel back with my Lee Sin here. And then I'm able to kind of get a kill, I think, onto the back end with the Viego, But now it's starting to get very rough. Camille kind of compensates, dies, and as you can see, it's getting brutal. So, same thing. Look what I'm trying to do. And I remember this was where the game imploded. So I'm thinking, look, I can't siege. I can't be here, guys. I don't know what to do. So I ping back from Baron because I know we don't have enough damage to do it. And look what I do. Maneuver again into the Krugs. Because someone at some point is going to go to this wave. Or these Krugs. One or the other. That was my prediction anyway. So I move all the way in here. There was no way this was going to be warded. Let's camp. Because I don't want to sit mid. Not my identity. Oh, I don't know why the hell Jace would do that. Still to this day, I'm looking at this. I mean, it makes no sense for Jace to do that. So it is what it is. Well played to Jace. Maybe he just wanted to EQ then walk away or QE and walk away. We end up having to use ults, 2 ults, and a flash on the Lee. So it ends up working out, but it costs way too much of our resources. Now, the rest of their team collapse, and I'm thinking, let's just get the hell out of here. I'm on a lot of gold. You have no sums. Lee Sin overstays for the Krugs a little bit. I try to get him out. What I had to do to get out of this was flash immediately. And the reason this is not good, as you can see straight away, I've got Viego kind of moving this way, Victor this way, Kate Janna this way, and I have no ultimate. The only way out is that if I flash ahead of the Lee and kind of usher him in, and then they're kind of coming in from one direction like this way. And then I can kind of maybe use my W or Everfrost better and then peel back. But I hesitate on my flash. I allow Victor to close the gap, and now they're surrounded me and I can't get out. So again, the premise in a lot of these skirmishes is that you either want to beat them to the punch, flash engage on one side, because I don't have ult, I can't do this, or you want to get yourself in a position where they're all funneling in one direction. But I didn't do either here. And I feel like this all ties back to us kind of failing our Jace pick. But the premise is still the same. These are the sorts of creative picks you really got to try and make when you get out range. I'm trying to maneuver myself into a position where I'm not going to play an even fight. And as you can see, yeah, I just can't do jack shit. It's not good. And even though I'm 11-1, 11-2 now, you know, I'm struggling. I really am struggling. They end up doing the Baron, I believe. And the game starts to get a little grim. And I end up typing here, give drag, trade it for farm. Because it's their third dragon. So I shove out the side, shove, 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 do the same thing, shove, shove, shove. But now it's too late. When I'm in this position here, where they're sieging, this is Cassio's worst nightmare. Because they see me. I mean, they all see me. I mean, the only good thing about it sometimes is that they are going to be coming in from one direction, in which I can R-flash. But they all see me, and they can just, especially versus a siege comp, this is really, really hard for me. I want there to be fog of war. I want there to be brushes. I want there to be that sort of thing. So now I'm just kind of getting pulled around the map. They're sieging us from different locations. I'm trying to look for a bush camp. They're not buying it. I remember I felt very frustrated. And I think eventually here, I end up going for like a flash combo at some point. I think, where is it now? We're just getting siege on. We can't do anything. Go back a bit so you can actually see it. Look at this. I mean, Jace is poking. I mean, this Victor's poking. No one's can walk through the traps. I mean, Ezreal's 3 levels down. And to be honest, I take responsibility for this game. I'm the one who gave Caitlyn a big shutdown when I didn't need to. I'm the one that failed that pick onto Jace on top side and didn't outmaneuver it. This is me suffering the consequences. I had to play a flawless game of League of Legends if I was going to win this one. I couldn't afford to mess up. Because my bot lane, I'm so hard counted by a lot of their champions. There's not much room for error. And then we're slowly getting poked out. I'm trying to look for an R-flash angle, but Viego jumps onto me. I use my gargoyles to peel, but it's just very difficult, and we end up just losing the game here. So as you can see, very rough, and hopefully this kind of outlines the comps that you ideally want to avoid playing Casio into. For me, though, when I was playing Casio, I was blind picking it no matter what, all of my games, so I didn't really have a choice. But you know, I was able to outmaneuver it, and the good thing about playing these games where you're counted as Casio, you're forced to be creative, so I don't mind it sometimes. Sometimes it's actually kind of fun. So, again, if you have any questions about these games, let me know. Otherwise, we're going to dive straight into the community Q&A. So now for the community Q&A. First one here from Stephen Kelly. I'm a D2 cast main that's been waiting for this one for a while. I won't talk things like builds, runes, combos, because I know these will be covered. Number one, team fight, skirmishing identity. I think going over many examples of this in varying team comps would be very helpful. Hopefully, I've done that. As you can see, Cassio's teamfight identity is very free flow. I mean, sometimes you're going to be playing the front to back. Sometimes you're going to be kind of sitting off to the side making a pick. Sometimes you're going to be kind of just on cleanup duty. Sometimes you're forced to be the engage. It really depends on the comp that you're versing. So hopefully I gave you plenty of examples of different skirmishes there that kind of give you things to work with. But if you have any other questions, just let me know. Different playstyles. For example, how Sally is different from other successful Halo cast players. Again, I did talk about this, and look, you know, there are many styles. You know, I kind of been talking mainly about this very battle magey style, aggressive solo kill style. Look, the reason I've gravitated towards this style is because I feel as though nowadays League's too fast, and especially now, like, we're leaning on a more of like a mage isolated lane meta. I mean, now I think TP is getting nerfed. So there's going to be even more isolated lanes. I mean, they've buffed mage mythics across the board. I just feel as though if you're locked in a lane as Casio and you're slowly just incrementally farming, you're not going to get to the mid game. Like, you're just going to struggle. At least in higher lane, at least like D1 Master Tier Plus, you're not going to survive. So I think that what I would say is play all the differing styles. Find what works for you. There is no one-stop shop solution. Everyone has their different identity, so play around with it. Hopefully I gave you a different, today a different review of a different way of playing Casio. But I think the most important thing are the underlying Casio fundamentals, the QW usage, the R usage, the mindset. Those are the most important things. Mid to late game, specifically, when it's better to stay in side lane versus grouping. So yeah, look, at the end of the day, because it really depends on, again, your interpretation of the champ, your style, as well as the composition you're in, it's really hard for me. What I've noticed, it's like encapsulate that all within one video. I think I tried to make that as clear as possible today by really talking about it from like a fundamental view and showing you many different perspectives. If you're still struggling with it after this guide, I would recommend joining the Midland Academy and do some coaching with me, man. We can kind of talk about that together. Otherwise, I tried my best to get across the mindset. So hopefully this guide helps, Stephen. Next one here from Carmen. As a cast one trick, the biggest thing I don't understand is which champs look like they are looking at you while they are not actually. For example, Camille using her W at you while walking backwards. Technically, she is turned around, but her animation doesn't show it. A list of these interactions would be magnificent. So look, at the end of the day, man, this thing, I've played Casio at every elo. Challenger, Grandmaster, Master Diamond. This has never really been something that I've thought about. It's such a small detail that I don't think it's just noise to me. What I would recommend is really focusing on holding your W regardless. Like the R fundamentals that I spoke about today, those are more important. If you can get those down pat, as well as the mindset, this sort of thing, you're not going to have any trouble with. I don't actually even look at which way, when I'm using my R, I'm actually using my R without even looking at their character in the way that, like, it's a feel thing. Like, so for example, in many of the clips that I've showed this game, this guide, sorry, I'm clicking like really close, close to my character, back and forth. I'm creating a pattern, whether it's through my auto attacks, whether it's through my movements, and then I'm just doing it no matter what. I'm R flashing because I've just got a feel. I'm not actually looking at their character, if that makes sense. So you'll see that in a lot of the examples if you've looked closely, especially that game, the game where it's Victor, and I made that side lane pick onto the Caitlyn. I'm actually not looking at a character model at all. I'm actually just doing it purely off feel and feeling when they're going to be last hitting or when they're going to be turning around, if that makes sense. So I don't think any Casio player would really ever be looking at the character's champion model. It's too late to think about that. So hopefully that helps, man. Next one from Illusory. One of the hardest things with Casio feels like when to commit to a fight. Since she's mid-range and squishy, you can't really poke with her. You have to go in or not. Spot on. But hopefully with this setup, you're not squishy, man. This is the whole point of it. That's why I feel like being tanky is very important with Casio because you're right. It feels weird to even build Casio squishy when I think about it in the past because a mid-range champion that is squishy with no gap closer, you would only ever be able to play it so rarely. So if you want to play Casio reliably, like in a lot of games, you have to be able to play this battle mage style, in my opinion. So, but yeah, you're spot on. It's actually very hard to know when to commit for fight or not, and that's where limit testing really comes into play. That's where R usage optimization really comes into play. Holding your R, that sort of thing, and understanding how tanky and how much damage output you have is very important. So hopefully, again, a lot of those things were really reiterated throughout this guide, and that all comes with limit testing. Putting yourself in those situations, man. If you could identify Casio's path in solo queue in the same way in your recent video, I would love that. For example, you might struggle past Platinum and Diamond, but Smurf and lower elos. Yeah, look, I didn't add it in this guide for a reason, because I think it's hard for me to really comment. I haven't done it, and I haven't really coached many low elo Casios. What I do know for a fact is that in Gold, the champ is great, but people's ability to play the champ is not great. So I think that it has nothing really to do with the champ. It's one's ability to play the champion. I think the champ is great in every elo. It's more one's ability to play the champion. As you can see in the way I'm playing Casio, it's a very mechanically demanding champion. So I would personally not recommend playing Casio until Plat 4. I think Plat 4, you're at a high enough elo to have enough game understanding to kind of make it work. But I think that Casio also will struggle, especially as a one-trick past like GM. I think you could probably get to GM quite comfortably. GM plus, I think Casio definitely turns into more of like a situational pick if we're talking just being on paper optimal. But I think it's definitely possible to get to Challenger one-trick in Casio. It's going to be quite brutal. And I think that's where you would really need to play this battle mage style. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to keep up with game paces, and you're just going to be just dying from too many multi-threat comps. Next one in from Nolan. I would like to learn about specific interactions that the ground effect has. So look, I tried to make it clear, look, it's a pretty straightforward ability. It doesn't work on things like Akshan Heroic Swing because he's actually already in animation and it's not really a channel. Whereas things like Nunu Snowball and TP are channels, so they can be cancelled. So view it, is it a channel? It will work. If it's not a channel, it won't work. I don't actually know all of the interactions. I don't know how many there are. I actually looked at the champ list and I was like looking through it when answering this question, and there wasn't many. Like, it was either really straightforward, or it was completely like weird. So for example, Viego can still ultimate even in the W, what I've noticed, and I thought he wouldn't be able to, but he still can. But he obviously can't cast his dash. So people just can't start their dashes when in Miasma. So, again, I wouldn't overcomplicate it. I'll say these are probably the main ones you really need to know about. But if you have any other questions, specific things that you want to know, just send it in the comments, Nolan. Gota d'Agua. As a long-term cast main, I find it important to address the possible different approaches to our identity, playstyle, and correlation to the level of game. Yep. Hopefully I've done that. Corrupting Potion and Early Prior is extremely inefficient and coin flippy until a very high elo. I don't even think Corrupting Potion is even viable, to be honest with you, because if you think about it, Tier and Mana Crystal Start give you a larger actual mana pool to work with to all in. I found that Crafting Pot is better with champions that you want to take small incremental wins, not all ins, because you want the largest mana pool possible. Anyway, it may be even more different in a low value Scuttle meta. So how do you play the early levels and how to identify her identity for that single game? Backline, Control Mage, Duelist, Battle Mage, Catcher. Again, it really depends as well what you're versing. Like I said, in games where I'm versing very high range, I feel as though sometimes I have to, like, I can't play the front to back. Like, I'm never going to win the front to back. And in that case, I'm just like a pick champ, like you call it here a catcher. Or I am, like, I'm just going to have to flash engage type thing. or make a, just make creative picks, fog of war type thing. In against low range comps, where I'm versing a lot of like bruisers, assassins, I'm happy to play the front to back, and I can just stand my ground with my W, my ultimate, my Everfrost, my gargoyles, and I can just win the front to back team fight. So I would say it's even hard to really put a quote unquote name to Cassio's identity. I think the most important thing is to don't, as long as you have the mindset right, the Mike Tyson mindset, you understand the importance of like holding R, QW fundamentals like we covered in this video, the importance of utilizing fog of war, wanting the enemy to come to you, all these fundamentals, the identity will create itself in a way, if that makes sense. So I think you're spot on. Hopefully I tried to get across that this isn't the only way to play the champion, and I just didn't think I had time to really explain the different styles of Casio, like the slower style, because I don't even really think it's viable in high elo. I don't even think that's really her identity anymore, so I chose not to really address it. This is just the way I think she is most optimally played, but I think it's a really good way of thinking, Gota. Next one from Ski Lift, about mages in general. When to focus wave state and when to focus trading. Like I said here, man, be like water, be dynamic. If the trade exists, take it. If not, then play for farm. The way I approach a lot of these lanes is, if they're going to allow me to get in range, I will get in range and I'll get in their face and I'll take that trade. If they're not going to allow me to get in range and they're out-tethering me or whatever, and they're keeping their range playing conservative, that's okay. I will also play conservative. Very similar to the game that I played Victor in the full game review section. He played really conservative, so I played really conservative. In a sense, I can't force trades onto a high range champion. But if a trade is possible, always take the trade. That's a nice little, I guess, rule to follow. So hopefully you learned a thing or two. Hopefully there's one thing at least you can take away. Put a lot of time and effort to this one. Thanks for watching. If you have any other questions, I'll try and answer them in the comment section. Otherwise, cheers. If you're interested in coaching, Midland Academy in the description below. Otherwise, have a lovely Christmas, have a lovely New Year's, and I will see you guys around for the next video. Cheers.